Majesty. Melania and I are deeply grateful to you and Queen Camilla for your extraordinary graciousness. And to William and Kate, thank you so much. It's been so great being with you today. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's a singular privilege to be the first American president welcomed here. The phrase special relationship, seen from American eyes, the word special does not begin to do it justice. We're joined by history and fate, and by love and language. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be with you.
Security remains the cornerstone of this special relationship. We have the deepest, most advanced defense relationship in the world.
As I said last night, the bond between our countries is like no other anywhere in the world. The United States and the United Kingdom have done more good on this planet than any two nations in human history.
We are working together to end the humanitarian catastrophe in the Middle East.
The one that I thought would be easiest would be because of my relationship with President Putin, but he's let me down. He's really let me down.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, the top of the morning to you. It is Mark Dolan on the home of Common Sense Talk. We have got a big 4 hours coming up. This is the second party conference in the reign of Prime Minister Keir Starmer. It should be a celebration following a landslide victory in July of last year, but it's looking like more of a wake. So could this be the Prime Minister's last conference as leader of his own party and leader of the government? Who are the runners and riders hustling and positioning themselves for the top job? And if Starmer does stay, how's he going to fix Britain's problems? On paper, he's Prime Minister for the next 3.5 years or so. How does he stop the boats? How does he grow the economy? How does he bring energy prices down? How does he tackle inflation? Big questions. Does he have the answer? Well, we're going to bring you full analysis from across the political spectrum with some of the biggest names in politics and journalism. And this is not a drill, folks. The monologue is back. That's right. Dolan's dispatch at 8 a.m. My manifesto for Sir Keir Starmer. He won't like it, folks, but it's like cod liver oil. Something that doesn't taste good is very good for you. It's going to be nutritious because I've got some home truths for the PM. That is Dolan's dispatch at 8 a.m. sharp. Be there. Appointment viewing and appointment listening. I say appointment viewing and I say appointment listening because this is not a radio station anymore. This is not a TV network anymore. This is not a digital platform anymore. Executive producer Dean Spencer, it's all three. Because it's a TV network. You can watch the show on YouTube. Just go onto YouTube now on your computer or on your phone or your tablet and search Talk, and up might come, my innocent little face. Or you can listen to us on the radio, DAB+. We're in-app, we're online. You can't get enough of us. And here's my priority for the next 4 hours. It's your opinions. 0344 499 1000. Is there any hope for Sir Keir Starmer? Right, let's put him on 24/7 career watch. How long's he got? And would the departure of Keir Starmer be a case of be careful what you wish for? Because many of the people jostling for position to replace him in number 10 are far more left-wing and could arguably do a lot more damage to the country. Is there anyone you'd like to see in number 10? If you accept that we're stuck with this government, which based on parliamentary arithmetic we are, then who could replace him that would be better? Because I've got no one. Anton Deck, I think, would be my only hope. But you'd have to find a safe seat in the North East, wouldn't you? All right, me lad. OK, folks, so there you go. A very busy 4 hours. Big names, big opinions and big debate. 0344 499 1000. Book your place on the show and let's talk. And helping me do just that is radio legend Duncan Barks. Duncan, welcome to the studio.
Morning.
This is your habitat. This is where you belong.
I love this place.
You are the king of the broadcasting jungle. It's
Very
great
kind.
to see you. You've covered every shift in radio, day and night.
Yes.
What's
I've got the bags to prove it.
No, you don't. No, you don't. No, that's, to me, that's gravitas.
You think so?
Yeah.
Do I wear it well?
Yeah, you've got gravitas.
You're very kind.
See a doctor about that.
Yeah.
There's a cream. Now,
Have it removed.
Duncan, it's really great to see you. So much to go at, isn't there? Let's have a go through the front pages. We've got Sunday Telegraph here. Ministers beg Reeves to unleash spending.
Yeah.
Rachel Reeves is facing a revolt from ministers who are demanding she tear up her fiscal rules to allow more public spending. Ministers are begging the Chancellor for additional funding to fulfil manifesto commitments in their departments, warning austerity-like politics will drive voters into the arms of Nigel Farage. Now listen, Duncan, I'm all for investing in public services, OK? We know that the NHS is creaking on its knees. We don't have enough police officers. The teachers could do with more resources. It goes on. The potholes, right? But did nobody get the memo in the Labour Party, the governing party of this country, that we're broke?
No, they don't understand. I think they are economically illiterate, and there appears to be not just ministers but a rump of backbench Labour MPs who simply do not understand basic mathematics, right? And I'm not an economist. I do have a GCSE in economics, of course, actually at a B grade. But it's really...
as far as I'm concerned, you're basically Stephen Hawking.
I could be. It's basic stuff. You can't carry on spending money unless you've got the money.
Yeah.
And we seem to have an addiction to borrowing. We have an addiction to debt. Do you know, it's about £105 billion a year we pay to service our debt interest, right? Not paying off the debt. So you've got a credit card. It's not paying off the chunk of cash that you borrowed to stick your new kitchen in or whatever.
Yeah.
This is the interest that's incurred on that debt. And it's around 105 billion quid a year that we pay. And people don't understand that. And I think we're heading towards a tipping point. And there is this Labour mindset. It's like in the DNA of any Labour Party politician or indeed member, which is like, oh, well, just borrow some more money. We should just invest it. Well, they use the term investment. We should just spend more. And we've had successive governments who have not done that. You used the word earlier, austerity, right? We're nowhere near austerity. We never really had austerity from 2010 onwards.
Correct.
Certain media outlets will tell you it was a form of austerity. If you look at where we are now, there's a record amount of cash going into the NHS. We can have the NHS debate maybe another time. We are pumping billions of pounds into public services, and at some point, it's all going to fall over. We can't carry on affording to do this.
It most definitely is. And I can almost, for a nanosecond, Duncan Barks, feel a little bit sorry for the Prime Minister.
Really?
Yes. Now, don't get me wrong. He didn't have a plan for power.
No.
He ran an awful campaign in which the answer to every problem, such as the boats, immigration, the economy, was my father was a toolmaker.
Or I'm not the Conservatives, vote for me.
That was the big sell, wasn't it? Dad's a toolmaker, I'm not a Tory. Let's go.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the Tories were so egregiously unpopular towards the end of their reign that you just had to not be a Tory and you won, and that's fine. But he's been found out, that's quite clear. The only issue I've got, the sort of tiny scintilla of sympathy I've got, is that he tried to shave down the welfare bill by looking at disability benefits, prevented from doing so by his own backbenchers.
Which is absurd, given the massive majority he came into government with, which then gets us into this whole debate about his authority, whether or not people in the party actually like him, which they don't. I mean, here we are, 14 months into this government. What's happening in Liverpool? The Labour Party conference will be starting today. I mean, it is a truly divided party.
Well, 11 party workers were there to applaud him as he entered the conference centre. Well, I'm exaggerating. Okay, there was a small crowd, but those people looked like, first of all, they looked like they were on medication.
Right. Can I make the observation? He looks like he and his missus have just come from a Coldplay concert.
Yeah,
right?
I know,
That is typical centrist dad outfit. He does not look like a prime minister.
Well, can you are a sartorial expert. Can you describe that? Shall we say Mrs. Starmer's a very good-looking lady? And she looks great.
Yeah, Lady Starmer. I don't know what we're allowed to say in this day and age.
I don't know how many of those clothes she actually bought.
She's quite foxy. I mean, maybe the jeans are courtesy of Lord Ali, or the shoes are, or possibly the sunglasses. I don't know. She's easy on the eye. Can we say that?
Can I say, Duncan Bark, if you're safe with anyone, it's me.
All right. And then on the left we have Keir Starmer.
Guys, by the way.
I'd just call it centrist dad. He's got a pair of, I think they're slightly baggy jeans. He's wearing trainers. He's got a navy shirt, and he's got a jacket which is one of these jackets you see that's like a shirt cum jacket.
It's very confusing, almost like a sort of a heavy cotton canvas sort of material. Sorry, I'm not Jeff Banks. I'm not going to describe him.
Well, neither am I. So, I mean, he's the kind of bloke that I see near me in Chichester in West Sussex, which is, I know they talk about Yorkshire being God's own country, but, you need to get to Sussex. There's a craft beer bar that I go into occasionally because it does cask ale. But because it does craft beer, it's full of these hipster dads, right?
Right.
Quite happy to be drinking a £7.95 pint of some craft beer that's flavoured with guarana or whatever. He looks like the kind of person who's in there talking about the next Coldplay album or seeing Coldplay in concert. I don't like Coldplay, by the way. So he does look rather... For me, he doesn't look like a prime minister. We have this poll that's in the Telegraph today saying that he is the least popular prime minister of all time. Yeah. Now, that takes some reckoning, doesn't it?
It's a devastating poll, and it's an awful poll to have on day one of your conference, which, as I mentioned, Duncan, in the opening menu, should be a celebration. It's just 14 months since they won power. Their second party conference as the governing party after many years in opposition. Exactly. It should be a celebration, and instead it's a wake.
I think it will be awake, and you're absolutely right. From a political point of view, this should be the conference. I mean, obviously, it's the second conference since he's been Prime Minister. It should be the one where he goes, look what we've achieved, right? And he should be able to stand behind the podium on a stage somewhere, listing all of these great things. Instead, he has a divided party. He has a load of Labour MPs whose answer to everything seems to be write another cheque, which this country simply cannot afford. He's got a leadership, or rather a deputy leadership battle going on, where you've got Bridget Phillipson, who is kind of like would be his anointed deputy leader of the choice, but also Lucy Powell, who's further left on the party. He shouldn't be having that deputy leadership battle going on so early into his premiership. You've got all of that going on, and then you've got Nigel Farage living rent-free in his head.
Most definitely, and it's very clear that Sir Keir Starmer has identified Farage as the opposition now. Polls notwithstanding, and the fact that Nigel Farage makes headlines is perhaps the second most talked about politician in the country behind the PM. It's Starmer's judgment that he's got to beat and face down the threat of reform, and on that he's right.
He is right. I mean, the polls have shown this. Over 100 polls now have shown that Reform are in the lead. They're beating Labour and they're beating the Conservative Party, and there's a very clear strategy in place. And he said it. He now sees Reform as the major opposition in this country, which is astounding, bearing in mind they have 5 MPs, right? I've known Nigel Farage for a couple of decades. He's a great communicator. He's a great orator. His sense of what's happening in the country, he almost can second-guess what's going to happen next. And what's really interesting about what Starmer's doing, and he's given an interview today to Caroline Wheeler of the Times, Sunday Times, I think political editor Caroline, and he talks about, we're going to build loads of new houses. We're going to create all of these new towns, and he talks about this, the new towns as the physical embodiment of national renewal. And I read this earlier and I thought, you don't get it, mate. right? Because whilst you're saying that what we need to do is build lots of cheap homes for people, you're ignoring the issue that is top of all of the polling at the moment when it comes to asking voters about what they're concerned about, and it's these dinghies crossing the channel, right?
Yeah.
His answer is just like, more money, we'll invest, we'll give you a nice home. He's ignoring the elephant in the room. And if you ask him about it, he'll talk about the one in, one out deal, and then we had this kind of like, excuse my language, this vomit that appeared 48 hours ago. And by the way, I liked you cutting up your ID card.
Oh, bless you.
This idea of just going, oh, well, we had digital ID. I mean, it's never going to happen, right? The people in this country will not stand for that.
Yeah.
I don't know what the petition's looking like at the moment.
1.5 million last time I checked.
I think it's not. I think it's gone up a couple of 100,000.
Great.
It's not going to happen. But anyone with a brain can see that a digital ID card or something on your phone that says, "Oh, you're allowed to work here," is not going to stop the boats.
No,
it ain't going to happen, because if you're someone who runs an operation and you want to employ illegal workers as part of the black economy, you won't be checking their phone.
Most definitely not. Who are the runners and riders to replace Keir Starmer if he cannot turn this ship around? Plus, more front pages next.
Meghan Markle is quaking in her boots at the terrifying prospect of a tell-all book. The difficult Duchess suddenly severed all ties with Canadian Jessica Mulroney after the celebrity stylist was accused of white privilege in a race row over her failure to support the Black Lives Matter movement. Jessica is reported to have been offered a $1 million deal to write the story of her life and times with Prince Harry's social climbing American wife.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, the petition rejecting the idea of digital ID cards has now reached, Duncan Barks, 290 million signatures. That's right, 2,090,000 signatures, which is absolutely massive. That is people power in action. Why do you think Starmer has picked that fight?
Well, There's a question. I have two theories. The first theory is quite simple. He sees it as a way of saying to the electorate, I'm taking the boat crisis, the panel boats crisis seriously. Look what I'm doing. So, you know, it gives him a headline. It's a misjudgment because, as I said a few moments ago, the British people don't want this kind of thing. Right?
No.
It's a misjudgment. I also, having knocked around media and politics for far too long over my life, it's a distraction from other stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
It's a distraction from the divide in the Labour Party. It's a distraction from Andy Burnham, who thinks he can be the next Labour leader. And it's also a distraction from something that has disappeared off the front pages, which is the possible the allegations made by the Conservatives, who are doing good work on this, about the donations to an organisation called Labour Together, totalling, what, 700, it's almost 800,000.
£750,000.
Yeah, £750,000 that was not, it appears, properly declared. And it's the Conservative Party chairman, a guy called Kevin Hollinrake, who's done good work on this, who's written to the police saying you need to investigate this, said to the Electoral Commission this is not right. And the reason this matters is the person who was in charge of Labour Together back then, which was around 2017, 2018, was a guy called Morgan McSweeney, and he's now Keir Starmer's Chief Secretary, Chief of Staff in Downing Street. So I think all of that means, oh, what can we do? Let's talk about the ID cards, and it'll give us a headline that might try and distract from everything I've just mentioned, but also, look, we are serious about tackling the boat crisis. And
whether it's the cost of this ID card, the complicated element of rolling it out, because it could be the digital equivalent of HS2, whether it's public anger about it and petitions and potentially demonstrations, and whether it's a united political front against it that includes Nigel Farage and Richard Bergen, the ultra-Corbynite MP.
Well,
it ain't going to happen, is it?
I mean, I find myself standing shoulder to shoulder with people like Jeremy Corbyn, Sir Ed Davey, and Nigel Farage.
Now that could be clipped. That could be clipped and used against you.
It probably will be.
That could be career-ending. Your days at LBC will be numbered, my friend.
I'm no longer there, so it doesn't matter. But it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting that you have these people who are in very different positions politically, all just going, you know what? No, we're against this.
Yeah, well, this is exactly it. So I think it's unlikely to happen, and I'm not even sure Starmer cares. As you said, it made a few headlines. It helped him as a sort of dead cat strategy to cover over some of the other stories that are dogging the party, particularly what appears to be, Duncan, a number 10 operation in disarray. So the head of comms has just scarpered. And they've lost about 6 or 7 key aides in the last 12 months from the number 10 operation. That's not a good look.
No, I mean, some might use the term rats leaving a sinking ship. I'm just staggered by the fact that this is all happening so early into his premiership. You should, on paper, and I mean, the caveat being that British politics has changed massively in the last couple of years, but on paper, he should be going to Liverpool today. Well, he's in Liverpool now, but starting the conference today, just going, first year of our government, look at this, bam, bam, bosh, bosh. And actually, everywhere he looks, he's got a fire that he needs to fight. He doesn't appear to have many allies. He's made enemies as well. You know, Peter Mandelson, who he had to sack, the UK ambassador to the US, he won't be happy. Angela Rayner, who he had to sack because she doesn't understand how stamp duty works, and I'm being kind, she had to go. So he has got enemies in places. And I've learned this over the years, dealing with politics, working with politicians and stuff. You know, there's no party unity. They all think they can do a better job than their boss. And should we spend some time talking about Andy Burnham just for a second?
I'm so glad you mentioned that. Yes. Is it just me? Or has he made an almighty fool of himself?
Oh, massive cock-up. So if he believes that he can be the next Labour leader, he should have worked out a strategy and a plan, which he clearly hasn't got. He's gone far too early. There are so many obstacles in the way for him to get anywhere near leading the Labour Party. The main fact being he's not an MP. And I think it shows a really bad sign of Andy Burnham, which, regardless of where you sit in the Labour Party, is ultimately he's not a team player, because he started all of this, and I believe he did start it, on the countdown to the conference. Okay, if you're a team player, and you know, I'm sure talk viewers and listeners will know, he's the mayor for Greater Manchester, he should be there rooting for Keir Starmer. Instead, we have this flannel, and it is flannel of a story, which is just like, well, you know, some MPs have talked to me about it. Really, Andy? OK, well, you could keep that quiet, couldn't you? You then give a massive interview to the Daily Telegraph. You give an interview to the New Statesman magazine. You then rock up on the BBC in Manchester giving an interview. All are not signs of someone who has come, oh, it's just a few MPs who asked me, what am I to do about it? Shut up would be a good bit of guidance. And again, he is going to be at a conference in Liverpool doing some fringe events, just chucking these rocks from the sidelines towards Keir Starmer. Not a good look. And I think he's actually ruined his chances.
Well, I completely agree. I think that it's been an abortive mission, and it demonstrates a lack of political judgment on his part that's surprising, because hitherto he's had a fairly flawless record as Mayor of Greater Manchester. I mean, I always think that being a regional mayor is a more attractive platform, because you don't have to face the fundamental questions of the country, whether it's taxation, immigration, that kind of thing. You've got a sort of limited budget, and a chunk of the role is quite as a figurehead and ceremonial. So it's the same with Sadiq Khan in London. It's just a good flex to be a local mayor. Of course, you could argue paved the way for Boris Johnson to become Prime Minister. And we saw what a difference Mayor Johnson was from Mayor Prime Minister. Why? Because Prime Minister is a harder job where there's more accountability and many more problems. So that's the first thing. It's the fool's gold of this wonderful mayor, and he'll do for Britain what he did for Manchester. Here's the other thing. His offer to the party is sketchy at best. I mean, I don't know whether he came up with these ideas down the pub, right? But it strikes me as very back of the fag packet stuff,
right?
Such as, we'll do a wealth tax. We'll have a 50p tax rate,
upper tax
which of
rate.
course, when Gordon Brown did that on becoming Prime Minister as red meat for his own party, brought tax receipts down. So the 50% brings in less money, generally.
Look at your history, Andy.
Do you know what I'm saying? And then, so that's his big idea. And then, his other great idea is we'll borrow more money and we will spend more as well, because we're up spending. So, I mean, this is not the answer to Britain's problems.
No, it's not. And just picking up on what you and I talked about a little bit earlier, he was talking about borrowing £40 billion. Again, it's in the DNA of these Labour Party politicians. The answer is spend, spend, spend. And when you say we haven't got the money, they go, well, we'll borrow the money, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, have you not looked at the books? Do you not realise that increasingly it's almost going to tip the amount of money we've borrowed, or rather the debt that we owe compared to our GDP, is going to eclipse 100% at some point. And that is really dangerous. And they've got to get it into their heads that if you want your country to do well, then you need to be able to reduce your rely on borrowing. And if you can't, and alongside that, what you should also do is be so supportive of UK business that if you want growth, which means there's more tax receipts into the Treasury and your economy is booming, you make it easier for people to run a business in this country. And Reeves's last budget, last October, literally took UK business out, by its knees. It was absolutely appalling. I mentioned this earlier. I live in the wilds of West Sussex. I do a lovely drive when I come back from talk, and I go down through Surrey into Sussex, and inside the last 6 months, all of these lovely, quaint, gorgeous country pubs, by cricket pitches. I'm trying to paint this idyllic picture.
It's very good.
They've all closed.
Yeah.
They're all on the market.
All shuttered. Devastating.
And it's depressing. And
when they stop being pubs, you don't get them back.
You don't get them back. And I talk to pub owners and I talk to business owners, and they say the decisions that they've had to make now, which is either sack people or not give pay rises or whatever, or not recruit more people, or shut down, it's all as a direct result of Rachel Reeves's last budget, which was perceived as such an anti-business budget, despite the fact on the run-up to the election in July 2024, she's going around the city of London and elsewhere going, hey, I'm on your side.
It proved not to be the case. And what's, again, a bit of a tragicomedy for this Labour government is that they've sunk the economy and eviscerated growth. And that works against their best interests. They are the incumbent governing party. They need growth, and they've had policies in order to satisfy their sort of ideological stablemate that have absolutely eviscerated growth. And of course, it started before the election, talking down the economy with this £20 billion black hole, and then on entering office. Once they got into office, they should have offered a sunny perspective on our economic outlook. Instead, they taught the country down, and they're now paying the political and economic price. Be careful what you wish for.
Well, it's not just that. I think it also shows something you mentioned earlier. They didn't really come into government with a proper plan. It also shows the consequences of what I call quite basic student politics. It's really easy in opposition to go, oh, the economy's all rubbish, etc. And it's really easy to get into power. And you're right, she got into power, and it was easy for Labour to do so because people clearly wanted something else after the 14 years of the Conservative government. And you're right, she talked down the country. So if you're an overseas investor and you're thinking, right, shall I open a factory in Newcastle upon Tyne, or shall I open a factory in, I'm just trying to think, Madrid? You're going to go, do you know what? I've just heard the Chancellor just trash her own country and talk about the state of the finances. Oh, look, she's just done a budget that's so anti-business. I'm off to Madrid, right? You know, and it's rookie mistakes like that find us in this position where our economy is flatlining.
And speaking of mistakes, did you see that story that it's been alleged that Andy Burnham's remarks about the bond markets increased the cost of government borrowing?
Yeah.
And apparently the market, this is certainly some of his critics within the Labour Party have said that his casual remarks saying that we shouldn't be at the behest of the bond markets so much caused the bond markets to panic, thinking, well, this guy could eventually become Prime Minister. And the figure that was quoted was the equivalent of half the cost of scrapping the two-child benefit cap is what Burnham's remarks about borrowing cost the country.
So I think the bond markets are rightly overtly sensitive to anything that has been said by any Labour politician, or indeed how they react to stuff. The bond markets had a wobble when we saw Rachel Reeves crying on the front bench a few months ago because they thought that she'd just been sacked. So you look at this and you just go, Andy Burnham, which bit do you not understand? Your words have consequences. If you're being pitched by some of the UK media that you might be a future leader and you start having a pop at the bond markets, they're not going to react too well.
They most definitely are not. Lots of messages coming in thick and fast. Les in Cheshire, good morning. I've just finished a night shift. Well done, you, Les. Maximum respect, right? Contributing to the 24/7 unstoppable powerhouse that is the British economy. Les says, just finished a night shift, and given who would be best candidate to replace Keith Starlin will be a person with common sense, this being Mr. Blobby. What a great idea.
I can't remember, what sound did Mr. Blobby used to make?
Well, I think he said his name 3 times. Blobby, Blobby, Blobby.
Yeah, that was it.
Like that. I mean, I mean, this guy is an intellectual colossus, Mr. Blobby, compared to our current Prime Minister, and a lot more entertaining. Thank you for that, Les. Kevin says, Mark, the petition against digital ID is over 2 million. We're absolutely right. My team have just sent me the latest figure, and it's 2,090,960. And Carol in Shoreham by Sea. Hello, Carol. Top of the morning to you. Thank you for listening and or watching talk. Morning, Mark and Duncan. So good to see you both. The figure for no to digital ID is over 2 million. Have a great show. Well, Carol, with your help, we will. Thank you for that. Next up, more front pages, and net zero advocate Ed Miliband flew 80,000 air miles in the first 9 months of his job. Make it make sense. See you in 2 minutes.
Blobby, 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 blobby.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk. It's Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. and we've got a very, very busy show. This is not a drill. The monologue is back at 8 a.m. in Dolan's Dispatch. I've got Keir Starmer's manifesto, how he can turn this country around. But first up, let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages. Sunday Express: NATO must be solid or war is inevitable. Conflict with Russia is now inevitable unless NATO demonstrates strength and unity in the face of Moscow's escalating provocations. Defence experts have warned. Keir Giles of the international affairs think tank Chatham House said, "I fear a kinetic war with Russia is looking inevitable because the measures to prevent such a war are still not being taken." It is very clear that notwithstanding President Donald Trump's efforts at a peace deal, it seems that the leader of Russia wants no such thing. The Sunday Times identified Russian commanders who led troops accused of Bucha massacre. And I think we can pull this round, says Starmer. PM aims to reclaim patriotic values and targets younger voters with 12 new towns. Andrew and Sarah not welcome at Christmas. The King has signalled that Prince Andrew and Sarah, Duchess of York, are not welcome at the royal family's Christmas celebrations. Sources close to Charles indicated he'd keep them at arm's length. After it emerged, the Duchess had maintained contact with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein after publicly denouncing him in 2011. Some good news for the country. This is the Observer. Roses and thorns. England win the World Cup as Labour heads for a scrum. Nice confluence of two stories there, but congratulations to the England women's rugby team who have scooped the top prize in the sport. Mail on Sunday, I should say. Labour conference in turmoil. Do leaked texts prove PM misled Commons over secret donations in a story that won't go away? In poignant echo of his mother, Duke hits out at shadowy palace courtiers. Harry: men in grey suits are sabotaging my reunion with my father. Prince Harry last night lambasted the men in grey suits at Buckingham Palace, accusing aides of trying to sabotage his reunion with the King. The Duke's furious broadside is an extraordinary echo of his mother, Princess Diana's criticism of shadow royal courtiers, who he also described as the men in suits. There you go. Also, how about this in The Sun on Sunday? Strictly Stars protection. Death threat Skinner gets Spider-Man bodyguard. Strictly's Thomas Skinner is being protected by Spider-Man actor Tom Holland's former bodyguard after receiving death threats. Burly Daniel Gilbert was with the Apprentice star at Kempton Park Racecourse in Surrey on Thursday during filming for the show. Thomas was targeted after posting a snap of himself and the US Vice President J.D. Vance. Sunday People: Maddie suspect moved out of town. And last but not least at the moment, we'll go for the Daily Star Sunday exclusive. Footy star Gary seen using his phone while driving for a fourth time. Nev is a wheel wally. Pundit slammed by road safety campaigners. Straight red card. Motormouth pundit Gary Neville is filmed driving his posh £170,000 Bentley whilst holding a mobile phone, and it's not the first time the former Three Lions star has been caught offside. With me in the studio until 7 is the broadcasting legend Duncan Barks. And Duncan, can we just have a look at this non-political story for a moment? Sun on Sunday: death threat Skinner gets Spider-Man bodyguard. Now, this is Thomas Skinner, who was in The Apprentice.
Yes.
He's a very charismatic man. I've met him a few times. He's very charming. What you see is what you get.
Bosh.
Isn't it? Bosh. He's very big on Instagram and Twitter with his life advice, common sense wisdom, all of that. So he's been an entrepreneur. He's been in the on The Apprentice. And now he's doing Strictly. And what happens when you go on these shows is you have a lot of scrutiny on you, don't you? And you have to wonder whether he's regretting his decision to now participate.
It's really difficult. I find him quite fascinating, Tom Skinner, and I do follow him on social media. I mean, I let out an audible sigh a few moments ago when you talked about about the idea he needs a bodyguard because he dared to have a picture or put a picture of himself with Vice President J.D. Vance on social media, because when Vance was over here on holiday in the Cotswolds, they had a barbecue and Skinner was there.
Yeah.
And he was invited because apparently Vance follows him on social media. He's upset some people. This is Skinner, not Vance, though I'm sure some lefties don't like Vance for some reason. And he's upset some people because in the past he talked about tucking into... So he does this thing which is brilliant, because I love my food and drink, right? He does this thing where he goes to this cafe called Dino's Cafe. I don't know if you've ever seen it. And he goes...
It's an old school
yeah,
sort of English
I think it's East London,
eatery.
Essex border.
Would you call it a greasy spoon, or is it more a sort of diner?
Let's call it a greasy spoon, but I'm sure it's not grease. Do you know what I mean? It's good.
Yeah.
But he does this great thing where he goes, look at that, and he's got like his the meal he's having that morning and stuff, and it's great. And one of the posts that he put on there was him tucking into full English, and he made some remark like, you can't beat a good old-fashioned full English. Da 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 da. I'm sure it will upset some people, or I won't be allowed to support a full English, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And then of course you just get, and you might put my head in my hands. It's just like you get these people just go, oh well, that's racist. It's like, it's not. It's not remotely racist. He's right. We do live in a climate now where people, yourself, myself and other people included, have to think about what we put on social media, because there is a mob out there online who will see something that they deem to be unsuitable and they come after you. And what The Sun is doing today is making the link with the fact that some of his social media comments, which by the way I fully support, I don't think he's done anything wrong regarding his social media activity, have actually resulted in him needing a bodyguard.
It's unforgivable and it's quite tragic. The idea that you would face death threats for being photographed with the deputy leader of the foreign world, the deputy leader of our biggest ally on the planet, the United States.
I know.
I mean, surely anyone would pose for a selfie with the Vice President of the US, whatever their political colours.
There is a cohort, a contingent of people in our country, some of which are online, but all of which, to my reckoning, are all politically left of centre, who are fundamentally vile. And I've come to this conclusion over the years that the kind of like hashtag be kind mob, right, which seems to come from the left, are actually some of the vilest critics and genuinely believe that abuse and violence is justified against people who don't share their political views.
It's deeply troubling, and of course it reached its nadir in the United States with Charlie Kirk and his assassination, but it could happen here quite easily, couldn't it?
It could do. And what I found myself thinking over the weekend is about language, right? Keir Starmer branded Nigel Farage as the enemy a couple of days ago. The enemy. Not my political opponent, the enemy. Language like that is really loaded.
Well, what would you want to do with an enemy? You'd want to destroy them. What would you want to do with someone that was far right, a fascist or a Nazi? Yeah. You might justify taking their life, which, I mean, anyone would have smothered the Hitler at birth. So you're thinking, well, I've got the moral high ground if I go after these people. It's inflammatory language, it's divisive, but it shows that Starmer's looking over his shoulder.
He does.
He really does.
And he knows how powerful that word is. I'm not saying he's advocating violence against the leader of Reform UK, but I think he needs to think very carefully, as do all Labour MPs, actually, because clearly they're concerned about Reform UK, the language that they might use potentially could have consequences. And sadly, I've got friends, mates who were working for the Conservative MP, Sir David Amos, when he was brutally murdered in the Southend. And they've not recovered from that because they saw their boss dying. And when people start going, sometimes you just have to take the law into your own hands, it's like, no, the moment you start advocating or supporting some kind of political violence, you have to accept that's right across the board. So don't go down that route.
Most definitely. This from Paul in Manchester. Good morning, Mark. Great show. I like Andy Burnham. Most of your viewers and listeners complain that he only looks after Manchester Central. Well, Mr. Burnham has done a lot for the Greater Manchester area. Well, I do understand that, and he is a popular regional mayor, and he's definitely tackled poverty and issues around buses.
That's right. Fixed the buses.
He didn't bring them into state control.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And he's also helped, I think, with schools as well. So clearly he's a decent regional mayor, but we both think he's fluffed his chance at becoming leader of the Labour Party. But we shall see. Can I ask you about, you mentioned Thomas Skinner's breakfast in a greasy spoon. You are one of the world's leading experts on sausages, are you not?
I'm an enthusiast, not necessarily an expert, but thank you for asking. So I make my own sausages. Which I started doing. Do you want the story briefly?
Oh, I want the whole story.
I went on a butchery course, right, several years ago, which I loved, right, because I love meat. And I worked out quite quickly that you can't really do butchery at home because you need big spaces to hang up carcasses and things, which you don't have. So I thought, what can I do? And I went back and did a sausage course, and they teach you how to make sausages. Then I became obsessed with making my own sausages. And as someone who's, for a number of decades, talked into a microphone and got paid for it, which is quite useful, I thought, you know what we need? We need a podcast about sausages. So, and you and I have talked about this in the past. I set up a podcast called Prick with a Fork. That's where you laugh. And it's been going for several years. It's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, but I've recently been ramping it up on YouTube. So, as you very kindly asked me, it is on YouTube. It is called Prick with a Fork. Go and find it and subscribe, and you'll get this big fat man riffing about sausages, eating sausages, talking about anything sausage related. I recently did a thing called Battle of the Mustards. Because, of course, every sausage connoisseur needs to know what mustard
you would have thought it should be it's English mustard all the way, but do you beg to differ?
So, let's not have the conversation about American mustard because it's pointless. You might as well have toothpaste. Dijon mustard is all right, but it's got to be English mustard, and there is a company I quite favour called Tracklements.
Oh, right.
Strong English mustard. It's like a cold cure. It's brilliant.
That's interesting, And then you've got Coleman's, which is I think it's one of those examples where the best known brand is not necessarily the best one. And
I have it in my fridge, but I have 3 different kinds of mustards in my fridge.
Of course you do.
But no, Coleman's is great, but there's one called Tracklements, which is a strong English mustard, which is good. So, if you're listening to Talk or watching Talk and you like sausages, Prick with a Fork on YouTube.
Do it. Check it out.
Thank you.
I want to ask you, where do you stand on ratio of filler to meat? Because I've tried a very high percentage meat sausages, and then you got the other ones. A lot of the Irish ones, my family are Irish. A lot of the Irish ones, 50% rusk. So where do you stand on the ratio?
It's complex. When I started making my own sausages, I had a really, really high meat content because I came from a place which was just like, I want these to be really decent bangers, right? And I thought having a really high meat content was the answer. And some of my mates just went, it's all right, Dunk, but actually I could only eat one because it was so heavy. And our palates in this country have become conditioned to predominantly supermarket sausages. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, they are round full of chemicals and preservatives, but for a very good reason. And the meat content is well, it's not low, but certainly it's a lot less than, let's say, 98% if you're going to have a full, proper porker. So I use 10% rusk when I make sausages. And I like them fatty. I put quite a lot of fat in there because that adds to the flavour. So I use pork back fat.
Is it soft in the mouth then as well? Is it more emollient? Careful.
Absolutely.
Family show. That's great. Very, very good. And then you don't have to put preservatives when you make them yourself.
No, I mean salt goes in there. So salt is a form of preservative, but you won't find any chemicals or nasty preservatives in there.
Can I offer you some heresy?
Go on.
I started boiling sausages.
Interesting.
And then roasting them in the oven after having been boiled. Yes or no?
It's all right, but why roast them? Because I roast them. That's my favourite method.
I like what it does to the skin.
Yes, it caramelizes
them, and the texture makes them a little crispy, I think. But and then what about the prick? I mean, the show's called The Prick with the Fork.
Prick with a Fork.
Can you prick them when you cook before you cook them?
No, that's why you should never do it. You should never do it. I mean, I just came up with that name because obviously it's a bit self-effacing. It's Prick with a Fork here. But if you prick your sausage, what happens, Mark, is all of the fat runs out and you end up with a dry banger, and nobody wants a dry sausage, not first thing in the morning.
More front pages next. Is it game over for the reunion between Prince Harry and King Charles? Plus, a fresh new headache for Keir Starmer. That's next.
No, we don't support making this mandatory. I think Darren Jones's video was completely tone deaf. We've seen 1.6 million people sign a petition in the hours after the Prime Minister made this pretty desperate announcement. He said it's about tackling illegal migration, but employers already have to check someone's identity. We don't support making it mandatory to do this in the digital format. You want to build trust and confidence in these services and get people to adopt them and choose to adopt them if they want to. If they prefer to use traditional methods, then they should be able to do that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, it seems, Duncan Bark, that the advice from the Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband, is do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
What's the story?
Well, this is, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to be massively surprised about this, but this is our climate change minister. I like to call him Mad Ed. I know that's a little bit disrespectful, but that's part of my job. And The Sun is reporting, The Sun on Sunday this morning, that he flew 50,000 air miles in the first 9 months of his job. Now, of course, this is a guy who appears to be obsessed with net zero, telling all of us to get out of our cars and get on roller skates or whatever. And he's acting in a way that suggests that, well, as you just summed up, do as I say, not as I do. And what really rankles me about this kind of stuff is it brings people's faith in politicians, that's working on the basis they have some, even lower, because most people just go, all right, I kind of get I should do more for the environment, but the bloke who's preaching about it is not doing it himself.
Most definitely, and I think that he's a major political headache for just his existence is a problem for Sir Keir Starmer, given the fact that, you know, we talked about the problems facing the country. One of them is high energy bills. And it's not being helped by a man who refuses to tap into the resources on our own shores in the North Sea.
Correct.
And I think a change in tack on net zero would make this government more popular, but over Ed Miliband's dead body.
And what's interesting is the response here. So when The Sun on Sunday said to his department, what the heck is going on here? What's your reaction? A spokesperson said, you ready for this? We make no apologies for representing the British people. The emissions we can save from working with other countries will dwarf air miles from attending summits. And this angers me as well, because there's no understanding that people might go, hang on a second, Ed, what are you doing here? It's just like, we're making no apologies. So the arrogance is off the scale, the hypocrisy is off the scale, and Ed is not really the right person to bring this nation on side when it comes to doing measures, implementing measures that might help with achieving net zero. And that's before he deals with the big task in hand, which is actually convincing people we need to do something when we talk about heading towards net zero.
Most definitely. Now, the taxi company, which has a £4 million a year deal to ferry migrants around the country, has seen profits soar. And this is the scandal of illegal immigration. It's not just the hotels, is it? It's not just the pocket money, the mobile phone, the meals, the dentistry, access to NHS services. It's literally like a limousine service for people that have broken law and shouldn't be here.
It is, and again, it angers taxpayers in this country, law-abiding people in this country who, and this is very simple, I keep having this conversation with people and they just go, why people, these are people on the left of the political spectrum who sometimes I'm forced to have conversations with, and they say, why are people angry? And I just say, because there is this perception that if you break into this country, and that's what it is breaking into this country illegally, you break into this country, you are effectively rewarded for what you've done. It really is that simple. And the British people have a sense of fair play. They also have a sense of tolerance as well. And we have a great track record of offering sanctuary to genuine people over the decades who are fleeing tyranny and all kinds of issues. But when they see this happen, it really pushes people's tolerance to the limit. And it really is that simple. If you've got a local council who are funding taxi rides, and there have been some reports in the last few days, taxi journeys clocking up hundreds of miles, and yet that council is saying to a parents somewhere where your kid can't go to that school because there's not a space, people get angry.
With his job under threat as Prime Minister, do you anticipate potentially that Sir Keir Starmer could surprise all of us and do a hard pivot on illegal immigration and take us out of the ECHR, for example? Is it conceivable that, we know he doesn't want to, he's a former human rights lawyer, but if he thinks his job is at stake, this is a man who is very ambitious and quite ruthless. Could you anticipate a surprise twist in the saga with Starmer?
I don't think his party would allow him to do it. I just don't think he's got the authority or the persuasive powers to say to his political party, in order for us to survive and remain in government or get voted back in the next general election, we need to come out of the ECHR. They have talked about trying to reform it, but everything that I've read about the ECHR suggests that if you were to try and reform it, you would need the signatories of every other member, and that ain't going to happen. It's like Brexit all over again. It's like David Cameron going off to Brussels to try and just change the relationship the UK had with the EU. He came back with this dumb thing that all of us looked at it and just went, well, that's not going to make any difference. So, and you have to get a load of people on side who fundamentally support the ECHR. So I just don't think reform is on the table in terms of reforming the ECHR. Would he come out of it completely? I just can't see it happening.
Will Sir Keir Starmer be Prime Minister in a year's time when the Labour leader takes to the podium at conference?
See, I don't think he'll last until the next general election. So I think it's a case of when he goes, not if he goes. I think the next deciding factor will be the May elections and what happens to Labour in Wales and in Scotland, and how bad those figures are. And then there might be some people within Labour who will move to try and get rid of him. But we've got to remember that the Labour Party doesn't have the track record that the Conservative Party does with changing leaders just like that. The mechanism is kind of there. I think you need 15% of MPs to say we want a new leader and the leader needs to be this person, whereas in the Conservative Party they just chuck in their letters of no confidence and worry about who's going to replace the current leader. So there's a long way to go. I do think ultimately he will go. I did think it would be a race between Wes Streeting and Angela Rayner to replace him. I think Burnham has fluffed it, as you mentioned earlier. I would put money on Yvette Cooper coming through at some point as the unifying candidate to replace Keir Starmer if there's a leadership contest.
Well, interestingly, I don't think they've got a Boris figure in their midst which helps Keir Starmer. There's no obvious candidate. Probably Rayner would be the most charismatic among them, but in many ways she's damaged goods politically. Duncan, come back and see us soon.
Always a pleasure. Good to see you, Mark. Thank you.
What a thrill to have broadcasting legend Duncan Barks. Next up, how long's Starmer got?
very good morning to you, by the way. Morning, Tory, with me, Mike Graham.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
How realistic do you think a ceasefire is this week?
There's a very good chance that we'll have a settlement, an agreement of some kind.
We basically have two...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. Great to have your company. A big 3 hours to come as Labour embark on their second party conference since achieving power. It should be a celebration, but right now it's looking more like a wake. With the news today that the Prime Minister is now the least popular leader since records began. How does he turn this ship around? Starmer has said he thinks he can re-energise his party, recalibrate his premiership, but what does he need to do? We'll be hearing from voices across the political spectrum. Is it game over? Is he on borrowed time? Will this be his last conference as leader? As always, it's all about your opinions. 0344 499 1000. You can text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Also today, wokery gone mad. Come on, lads, is now an expression which has been described by the Football Association as offensive. We shouldn't say it. It's sexist. Come on, lads. I'm going to make that the catchphrase of today's show. We'll get reaction from Keith Hackett, former Premier League referee. And can Labour's new Home Secretary stop the boats? We'll bring details of a Sun newspaper exclusive with Shabbana Mahmood, who today vows to reset immigration laws so foreigners must prove their social worth before being allowed to settle in Britain. Plus, she unveils her plan to end illegal immigration. Will it work? Is it too little too late? And here's a question for you. Is it now the duty of all senior figures within the Conservative Party to defect to Reform UK, given the fact that they are likely to be the next government of this country? Should the Tories leave a sinking ship? I'll be asking Tory grandee, Sir Michael Fabricant, no less. But as always, my priority is your opinions. Let's get them on air. Let's get them on TV. Let's get them on the radio. 0344 499 1000. Book your place on the show. Matt is taking your calls this morning, so give him a call. He's on great form, I've got to say. He's had 3 Diet Cokes and he's ready to go. He's cooking with gas. Lots to get through. A big 3 hours, and this is not a drill. The monologue is back. 8 a.m, Dolan's dispatch. I'll be dealing with the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, in no uncertain terms, and I'm not pulling my punches. So, a big 3 hours, as the saying goes. let's talk. Front pages of today's newspapers. The Observer, roses and thorns. England win the World Cup. That's the England women's rugby team. Victorious. Congratulations to them. Sunday Times, I think we can pull this round, says Starmer. Mail on Sunday, Prince Harry, men in grey suits are sabotaging my reunion with my father. Sun on Sunday, Strictly Stars protection. Death threat Skinner gets Spider-Man bodyguard. Thomas Skinner requires a bodyguard now for the great crime of posing for a photograph with the deputy leader of the free world, J.D. Vance, the deputy vice president. Sunday Telegraph now, ministers beg Reeves to unleash spending and English roses rule the world. More front pages in just a moment, but first let's get the views of one of the best connected political journalists in the country, Theo Usherwood. Theo, a big day for the Labour Party, the beginning of their annual conference. It should be a celebration. They had a remarkable victory 14 months ago. Instead, it's feeling more like a wake.
Yes, it's going to be very difficult for the Prime Minister and his Chancellor Rachel Reeves to get through the next few days up in Liverpool. This is going to be a significant challenge for him. He's lost key members of his top team, from Angela Rayner to, of course, Peter Mandelson, and then we've seen Paul Ovenden, his Director of Strategy, and then Steph Driver, his Director of Communications, has also just left at number 10. So he is defenestrated to a significant extent. To get through the next few days, he insists this morning that he can turn it around, that he's got what it takes, and he's proposing some new towns. I'm not sure how that will resonate with your listeners, but yeah, he's insisting that he can turn it around. But he's definitely on, from his own, backbenchers' point of view, he's in the last chance saloon. And I think the view is...
Yeah, just on that, by the way, on new towns and house building won't wash with the public as long as legal and illegal immigration remains so high. That's actually not a politically valuable message anymore, is it?
No, I think you're right. I think that there is, and there was some polling that goes back to the spring, actually, Mark, which showed that it was possible for the Prime Minister to turn things around. It was possible to win back those Labour voters who'd left Labour in the last May's local elections to vote for reform, but who had voted Labour in 2024. And it was possible to bring them back, but to do so, the Prime Minister would have to deal with the issue of immigration. That if he could get immigration, especially illegal immigration, we're talking about the small boats in the English Channel, down to a few hundred, maybe a couple of thousand at most, that the voters would actually turn around and say, okay, fair play, you've solved the problem that's bothering us. We'll come back to you. But at the moment, there is nothing to show, at least from, I think, many of your listeners' points of view, that the Prime Minister really gets it. The ID cards announcement from earlier in the week was it was only yesterday, in fact, was I think it was disorganised. I think on the one hand they were trying to say, well, we don't know we're not very good at dealing with your data, and this will clear it up. And then at the same point saying, well, we need more of your data. I think many people will be confused by that particular message, and it's also controversial because it's opposed by most other opposition parties. Kimmy Badenoch, of course, couldn't make up her mind, but there's a strong anti-ID card from the likes of Nigel Farage. And if you're on the back foot and you are fighting a battle as the Prime Minister is, just to try and get your message across, it's best not to come up with something so controversial in order to try and win back the agenda. And it seemed like a misstep from the Prime Minister, even if it turns out that ID cards might be quite helpful in dealing with things like tackling illegal working, especially those migrants who are crossing the Channel. And of course, Sun has done a huge amount of work exposing those on working for delivery companies. I think the public, asking the public to trust the government more at a time when trust is so low is not going to wash.
What did you make of the timing of the announcement of an ID card scheme? Why this week? Why now?
Well, he's going. it's dealing with the quote unquote the pull factors to the UK. Even if people like the French President Emmanuel Macron are saying it, Mark, right? There's going to be an issue. But people come to this country because they see it as a soft touch. They come to this country because they know that they can be put in a hotel, that they can be housed, that they can be fed, that they can do classes. But they also come to this country because it's a clear message that actually you'll be able to earn some money as well. And the way that they can do that is by working on either on the black market for unscrupulous employers, but actually they can work for some quite well-known household names.
Including Uber.
Yeah, they can work for some household
Delivery.
names by using proxy accounts, whereby they do the work, but there's somebody there who's organising the whole thing, and it's on their account with those particular companies, and the money's paid in, and then they pay them. They take a cut for providing the account, and then they give them the money, most of the money that they've earned. And what the Prime Minister is trying to do is he's trying to tackle that particular problem so people understand they can't work in this country. But I think because, of course, you'd need to have a digital ID now to prove that you're right to work in this country. But I think people are naturally suspicious of the way that data will be used. And I think people also feel like, why should, ordinary people feel like, why should they need to provide ID on a huge database? And we don't know, there's a suspicion about the way that will be used, not just by the government, but potentially by private companies as well, accessed by private companies as well, at a time when political trust is so low. And I just think that you could see what the Prime Minister was trying to do. It felt like it was an idea that had come out of, it's an idea that has not gone away since Tony Blair, of course, first brought it up when he was in government, and it may make sense to the Securitat in this country, but politically, I'm not sure it does make sense at this particular time.
I think it's difficult for the Prime Minister when he wants to do things that perhaps would be good for example, the nation's finances, such as looking at disability benefits. His own party won't let him. It's a curious thing. Can you remember a Prime Minister that's presided over such a large majority who is governing what feels like a hung parliament?
Yes, and there are two things you need to govern as Tony Blair, Margaret Thatcher governed, right? And there are two things. You need a big majority, which Keir Starmer has, but you also need money. And I think there's a lack of realisation, not just by his backbenchers, I think also by his cabinet, that he doesn't have, and Rachel Reeves do not have, significant amounts. In fact, they don't have any money. They need to raise more money. And there's a feeling in politics that everything is controlled in Number 10, everything is controlled in Westminster, but the people who are constantly ignored are those who work in the financial markets.
Yeah.
And there's a front page article today about Reeves being urged by ministers to unleash spending. Well, if Rachel Reeves wants to go and unleash spending at a time when she has to find £30 billion by relaxing her fiscal rules, then we're going to end up in a situation very quickly where the bond markets are going to throw their hands up and say, enough, we will not put up with this. It's a basic question, Mark. If I lend you a tenner, the basic question you're going to ask me is, am I going to get it back? Yeah. Now, if you know that of course, that I'm good for it, that I can, I can earn it back and I can pay you that tenner back. But if you think, well, actually, Theo is not a reliable person to lend money to, then the way you're going to get that money back and the way you're going to accept that risk is you're going to put a high interest rate on it, which you're going to say, okay, well, I'll lend you a tenner, but I'm not quite sure about how your ability to pay that money back. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for 20 quid back. This is, numbers out of the sky, right? But that means that, if the markets do that, if the interest rate goes up, and of course it won't go up to 100%, of course nobody's pretending that for a minute, but if the interest rates start to creep up, then that's money that we have to spend mark, not on the NHS, not on education, not on fixing potholes, but just servicing the debt. And we're paying billions every month just on servicing the debt. And Rachel Reeves needs to, and this is why she has her fiscal rules, needs to assure the financial markets that actually we can pay the money back, that she is good, that we are good for it, the UK PLC is good for it, and that will keep, if she can do that, and it's already at a record high. Some of the markets, we're hitting percentage points where it's up to, not seen since 1998, are very concerned that actually we're in a situation where the public finances are not being properly managed at the moment. And she can listen to her MPs, she can listen to her backbenchers by not cutting welfare spending, but ultimately, if we have to go to the International Monetary Fund for a bailout akin to a developing world country, that will not be a good thing.
Most definitely not. Could this be, and will this be, Sir Keir Starmer's last conference as Prime Minister? That's next.
No, we don't support making this mandatory. I think
there are people watching this in their thousands who are going, I've just done my week's work. I've paid my bills. I've fed my kids. I can't even afford to get an Indian tonight. I might have a can of lager. My missus is there. And these people, it is becoming so farcical and so embarrassing. And they wonder why the British people have had it. They have had it in their millions.
If you can't get an Indian, right, you just call up this taxi company, they'll bring you an Afghan for 250 quid, because it says here...
Did I deliver that quite well for you?
Yeah, it was, thank you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Dolan's dispatch at 8 a.m. Do not miss it. But let's have a look at the front page of the Sunday Times. I think we can pull this round, says Starmer. Sir Keir Starmer will seek to reset his faltering premiership today by announcing plans for a dozen new towns with up to 300,000 homes, as he insists, I think we can pull this round. In an interview as he prepared for his party's annual conference in Liverpool, the Prime Minister described the new towns as the physical embodiment of national renewal, which would restore the dream of home ownership for young people. Let's get the views of Angie in Plymouth. Good morning, Angie.
Good morning, Mark. Can I first say how happy my family and I are that you're back on Talk. We just love you.
Oh, that's so nice of you. That means the world, Angie. Well, look, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be back at the Home and Common Sense.
Yeah, you're fantastic.
You know,
and as a Crystal Palace fan, I'm even happier because we beat Liverpool 2-1 yesterday.
Incredible victory.
I've got my one of my grandsons has come around for lunch today, and his father's from Liverpool, so I'm going to have to be diplomatic, which is not my strongest point, but there we go. Anyway.
Up the Palace. Great result. My call screener, my phone op, Matt, is a big fan as well. He's celebrating. In fact, I think he's still drunk. I can't lie. He's got a glazed look in his eyes.
I used to work in London. Last 8 years of my career I worked in London, and I never missed a match, home or away. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, look, happy days. Here's to top four finish. So, Angie, what about the Prime Minister? Is he going to have a top four finish this season?
I honestly usually phone Talk at least once a week, but I was so angry last week I wouldn't have been able to be broadcasted.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, I am so angry, seriously now, and I'm with Mike Graham on this. I don't think he'll be here at Christmas, but my question is to you, who's going to replace him? Is it going to make any difference? Is it going to make it any better? That's the problem.
I agree, Angie. It could be a case of be careful what you wish for, because here's a headline in today's Sunday Telegraph, Angie. Ministers beg Reeves to unleash spending. Did they not get the memo that we're broke?
I know. It's ridiculous, Mark. It's absolutely ridiculous. And can I just say that the reason I couldn't phone Talk last week, because I've been banned for life, was because actually we have, as I said, I worked in London for the last 8 years. So we have a number of Jewish friends, and one of them actually is Anne Frank's posthumous stepsister, because Ava Schloss, who, when I was working in London, she used to come in on Holocaust Day, even in her late 80s, early 90s, and give the most amazing talks about her mother, and she survived, but her father and brother died on the awful death marches. They were basically murdered by the Nazis.
Yeah.
And then her mother married Anne Frank's father. And and if everybody's listening, if you want to know about what the Jews went through and how somebody rebuilt her life, you want to read the book by Ava Schloss, After Auschwitz. I've got a signed copy because, as I say, she used to come into the school that I taught at in London and give talks about it. And how these people can go out and show these flags for Palestine, I just do not know.
It's truly shocking. And what about Sir Keir Starmer recognising the state of Palestine?
That's why I couldn't turn up last week.
Which is governed by a death cult called Hamas.
I know, disgusting. So here we do. We have, and my grandfathers fought against the Nazis so that we could have freedom. And I fear that our freedom is being lost now. I really do, Mark. And I am, and Ava Schloss is still alive. She's 96 years old. And she, into her 90s, was still going to schools in London telling children about what her life experience, having survived Auschwitz, and then her mother meeting Anne Frank's father and marrying her, and I think, I'm, as a retired, the reason I took early retirement because I could no longer bear to see what was going on in our children's schools.
Education system, the brainwashing, the wokery. Stay with us, Angie, because I want to bring Theo Usherwood, the highly respected political commentator. There you go, Theo. You've got an Uber fan in Angie. And Theo, here's the issue. Have the public and folk like Angie, have they made their mind up about Sir Keir Starmer now?
Well, look, if you look at the polls coming out today ahead of this conference, it feels as if Keir Starmer is now in an electoral pit in which he can't climb out of it. It's so bad. I mean, he's down to a record low net favourability ratings of minus 70. I saw in one poll Labour predicted to win fewer than 100 seats at the next election, and that putting, Nigel Farage is now, 12 points clear in a very large survey of British voters known as an MRP poll, which would give him an overall majority, or very close to an overall majority in the House of Commons. Just on Angie's point, I despair sometimes at the way this government has approached the issues in the Middle East. The recognition of Palestine, the state of Palestine, Israel is fighting an existential war. We have to remember why Israel was established in the first place. And for Britain, which has relied so extensively on support, strategic support in the region from Israel since the end of the Second World War, to turn its back like it has done simply for electoral reasons. Remember them talking specifically about the pressure from the left and pro-Palestine candidates, and the fact that so many, around 50 Labour MPs actually did lose their seats at the last election, but another 50 or so could lose their seats at the next election from those standing on a pro-Palestine pro-Gaza ticket. That's why the Prime Minister has approached this the way that he has. And I really do. I feel for Angie, for the Jewish community, the way they've been hung out to dry in this regard.
Most definitely. Angie, is there any way that the PM can turn this around? Because we have to look at the parliamentary arithmetic. We are stuck with this Labour government for the next 3 or 4 years.
Well, I just wonder, though, do you think so? Because I just think that people are going to look at this, what's it called? People are signing up to.
Petition.
Yeah, that's the word. Thank you so much. I just think that this could be, like Kevin Sullivan said, this could be his poll tax. Do you know what I mean? I just wonder. And one thing I wanted to say to Theo is thank you so much. I always watch, I love the banter between you and Mike in the morning. It's brilliant. But, one thing I would say is that I have got Jewish friends. One of them was a very, successful barrister. She has now given up her career to homeschool her children because she can't let them go. They're too scared to walk through the streets of London to take them to school. What kind of country has Keir Starmer created? And like I say, my grandparents fought for our freedoms. I love this country, and I'm very proud to be British. But I think Keir Starmer doesn't care about this country. I only think he cares about himself. I think he's... I can't say exactly what I think about it.
Well, Angie, listen, you'll never get cancelled on my watch, but I really appreciate the passion with which you speak, and I want to thank you for the kind words as well. We're going to have many conversations in the future, so please call again. Angie in Plymouth there, really not happy about this administration, not happy about Keir Starmer. Here's the thing before I let you go, Theo Usherwood. The Prime Minister has to stop the bleeding. Will that happen this week?
No. That's the simple answer. I don't think he will. I don't think he will stop the bleeding. I don't think he's got what it takes right now. He doesn't have the wherewithal, and he doesn't have the team, I think, at the moment. And I say that I'm trying not to say that in a sort of fire and brimstones kind of way. But if you look at the way his team in Number 10 has been significantly reduced, if you look at the way he's approached everything, to rely so heavily on those he's brought in around him, and given where he finds himself right now, I think he's got an impossible task if he wants to turn it around. And I think, to your point about when there is a general election, I think the first thing to recognise is that the mechanism to get rid of a Labour Prime Minister is much trickier than it is to get rid of a Tory Prime Minister. I also think that Labour can fairly legitimately argue that since the Tories had so many different leaders over 14 years, that they're allowed to give one other person a shot before there's a general election. And so I think whoever comes in will be, they will argue, and I think they will say there is a legitimate argument to make to have that person in power for whether it be 1 year, 18 months, something around that. So I think probably I do think we're looking at a slightly earlier election, somewhere around 2027, 2028. But I think that that to your point, I think you said, didn't you say earlier, be careful what you wish for?
Yeah.
And I think the way the Labour Party, if you look at the front pages of some of the papers today, if you read the runes, over the last couple of weeks, I think it's pretty clear that Labour wants to have a massive lurch to the left. They want to bring in somebody who is going to take, there have been voices within Keir Starmer's government. Actually, I include Morgan McSweeney as Chief of Staff in this, who recognises where the country's at, and they've tried to pull the Prime Minister to a position actually he's not very comfortable with. But ultimately, I think they're going to end up. I think Morgan McSweeney is probably going to lose his job at some point in the not too distant future, as the Prime Minister gives it one last go. Once that happens, I think he's then on borrowed time, probably until the local elections in May. If they're a disaster, Labour MPs will recognise that he's leading them into oblivion, and that they're all going to lose their jobs, and they'll get rid of him and they'll replace him, I would imagine, with somebody from the left. Do I think it's Andy Burnham? Probably not. I think he's gone too early, but I think they'll rally around somebody within Parliament who they think can lead the party, or you'll end up with quite a centrist candidate pretending to be really left wing in order to ensure that they get the votes that they need to succeed from Keir Starmer. I'm not even sure that we have a really clear idea yet who that person will be, but yeah, I think that as we get to post the May elections, I think that's probably when they'll make their move.
Well, yes, you're always thinking, who is the Boris figure that's lurking in the background, ready to come in and make headlines and steal the show? I don't think Burnham is of that ilk. I don't think Yvette Cooper is, or any number of the proposed candidates. However, you would argue and could argue that Angela Rayner is one of those politicians, one of those Heineken politicians that reaches the parts. Is there a path to victory for her, do you think?
I think the obvious thing to say about Angela Rayner was when she was in cabinet, she was there, and the speculation about succeeding Keir Starmer was always at a much lower level, because it was always going to be, it would be obvious that if anybody wanted to challenge Keir Starmer, they were going to have to get through Angela Rayner, and that appeared to be an impossible task. She's left government she left government at the beginning of September in disgrace, but time's a healer. And I think she would obviously fancy her chances, and if the process can become eked out and she can do some good work, as she would see it on the backbenches, winning over the support of Labour MPs, gaining a following, it is going to be difficult to come back from what happened in September in that route, what happened with her flat and the stamp duty. But if she can, just take a moment just to build her base on the Labour backbenches, and she decides to go for it, then I think she'd be difficult to beat. The other obvious candidate we just haven't mentioned, and it's just worth mentioning, I think, and I talked about centrist politicians pretending to be left wing. I think Wes Streeting. I think Wes Streeting is somebody we can't ignore. It's very interesting, the tweets that he put out in the wake of that Donald Trump and those claims which were unsubstantiated about paracetamol affecting children at birth, and taken by pregnant women affecting children at birth. So I think that Wes Streeting took a very bullish stance on that, particularly on social media, and I think he is definitely one to watch.
Definitely, he's a brave politician, and he's certainly got more charisma than the current incumbent. Theo, always great to talk. We'll catch up soon. My thanks to the highly respected political commentator Theo Usherwood. Next up, folks, the world's gone mad. The Football Association, which, by the way, does receive some public funding, so you and I are partly bankrolling this entire organisation, have issued an edict saying that the term "come on lads" is offensive. Come on lads! How are we supposed to win a World Cup if we can't chant "come on lads"? There are lots of other things you can't say. Linesman is an assistant referee. Don't say "bring your wife," say "bring your partner." Don't say "ladies and gentlemen" has been banned, right? You can't say, you've got to say "hello all." The world's gone mad. We'll get reaction from one of the biggest names in football next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, a big reaction to my interview with comedy legend Tommy Cannon yesterday. Morning, Mark. Great show so far. I had the best Saturday night TV last night. We watched back-to-back episodes of Cannon and Ball. Class act. Shame on ITV for not recognising them. They're far better than anything they show nowadays. If you want to see my interview with Tommy Cannon, it's on YouTube. It's well worth a watch. Just search Talk and you'll find it. And how about this from Margaret, who's currently in Tunisia. Good morning, Margaret. How are you? How's the weather in Tunisia? Aren't you lucky being in a lovely warm place at the moment? Following your discussion with Tommy Cannon yesterday, I watched quite a few of the Cannon and Ball shows. Still very funny today and still made me laugh. Humour today has changed and a lot of the woke brigade wouldn't have got it. Well, speaking of woke, Margaret, the phrase "come on lads" is now considered an offensive term that players should not use, according to the Football Association. Barks and Bucks FA has published an inclusive language guide advising that "come on team" should be used instead as a gender-neutral alternative. Now, lots of other phrases that we've got to look at again. Don't say linesman, say assistant referee. Don't say bring your wife, may God forbid, she who must be obeyed. Your ball and chain, the missus, no. Bring your partner. And ladies and gentlemen is banned as well. That's right. We're not ladies and gentlemen, just hello all. What a joyless world we're turning into. Well, let's get reaction now from one of the biggest names in football. I'm delighted to welcome Keith Hackett, former top Premier League referee. Keith, we got to show this one the red card, haven't we?
Absolutely. I mean, I guess, first of all, Mark, great to be on your show.
Thank you.
What we've got here is we've got a regional county FA, not a national FA, coming out with this document. Someone probably started off with all good intentions and has created a monster of nonsense. I just think back to my career when on a Sunday morning I'd be rolling out and officiating two pub teams that have probably consumed a great deal of alcohol the night before. This is woke at its worst. I mean, we know that an assistant referee is an assistant referee. That terminology was changed years ago to overcome the gender problems. So for me, I think I look at some of these words and I think someone needs to get a life. I then on the other side think, well, are they actually creating a duty of care as a county FA and bouncing the ball over the tennis court to make certain that they don't get charged with any problems in the future? But a 23-page document costs money. Who's it going to? Is it going to that young 12-year-old boy who receives a kick on his shin, uses a few expletives even though he's a youngster, and the referee comes across and offers some support? I think we're creating a world of fear here.
Most definitely. And the roots of football are as a working class pursuit, aren't they, Keith? And of course, football is for everyone, but that's, that is the genealogy of it. And this is about hard-working people who on a Saturday afternoon want to relax and go and let off steam, have a few beers, as you say, yell a few expletives at that lazy defender or the striker that's Mr. Sitter, and they don't want their language policed.
Correct. We are on the shop floor, Mark. What happens in the factory or in the office on a midweek it takes place on a Saturday and Sunday morning when someone wants to go out, just enjoy the game, shouting to the mates. Now, I understand there is a difference between being offensive and threatening towards young referees.
Of course.
But I also recognise that we need a freedom of expression, and sometimes that expression on the shop floor it creates words that we don't like at the time. But come on, this is a step too far. I cannot believe that the National FA at Wembley are going to approve this document.
Have you got wider concerns about the culture within the FA? Do you think that they are in the grip of woke ideology, or is that an overstatement, Keith?
Yeah, I think what we've done is we've seen administrators, if you like, people who have not even participated in the game, not even administered the game at grassroots level, come through a system and suddenly getting in high places. And what they're doing is they're covering the back. They're sort of sitting there with time on their hands thinking, what am I going to do next? And I think this guy's the same. I think just get out there, speak to referees, speak to players, speak to club officials. You don't have to produce a document that, if received, will go straight in the bin. You know, I'm president of Penistone Church. We have 30 teams, Mark. We have spectators. Who's going to get this booklet if it's produced? It'll just go straight in the bin. Now look, I think we all want to use the correct terminology, but someone needs to sit down and just consider. The science says very clearly that on the field of play, the communication of a referee between its participants, 55% of the land of what the referee is saying is through body language, not through the voice. It's through those palms turned down, it's through those eyes, those facial expressions, those hand signals. It's not threatening or shouting or looking at these and I'm thinking, you know, what's your name? I'm going to caution you, I'm going to yellow card you. You know, and how is someone going to absorb all this information?
Match officials they've got enough on their minds, haven't they? You know, you refereed at the top level that it's a high pressure job, and yet you've got to worry about someone's pronouns, or don't mention a wife, don't say come on lads, or use any normal language that people do use. The match officials have got enough to worry about without self-editing in their heads.
Absolutely. And, you know, let's not take the enjoyment out of what is a sport that shows different skill sets, passion, and all that goes with it. So I'm very clear that this is a step too far. It is absolutely bonkers, as the headline states. And I think the FA need to get a grips with this guy and say, look, stop this immediately.
Well, you know what's next? They'll be telling the fans not to chant offensive slogans. The bottom line is, like I've said, we have free speech in this country and people work hard all week. They spend a small fortune, especially in the Premier League, for their tickets. And if they want to yell at a defender and call him a numpty, good luck to them. I'm on the radio, Keith, and TV, talk radio, and you know, I get expletives in my direction if people disagree with me. So be it. I've got a public platform. They're entitled to. And I think it's a real worry. This censorship shouldn't be happening in our sport. Maybe the most egregious example, Keith, by the way, has got to be the retiring of the term man of the match. So I grew up watching Match of the Day. Man of the match is always a great moment, isn't it? At the end of the match, who gets man of the match is a great dating point. It's now been changed to person of the match, and I'm never going to call it that, and I will never bond with that awfully clinical language.
I'm with you, Mark. I mean, I just think that the woke people are going a step too far. They're trying to ruin our game. I think there are much more, if you like, interesting and difficult situations with our game that can be resolved. You know, I'm not against the protection of match officials on the field of play. What I am against is trying to tell them what they've got to say and when they've got to say it. You know, as I've said before, I think let's not suppress passion either from the fans or from those participants in the game. And I think this is an absolute abject nonsense and needs to be binned immediately.
I mean, can you even say, Keith, the words person of the match? It just feels so wrong coming out of your mouth, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's man of the match. It can be lady or woman of the match.
Woman of the match.
Just change the terminology. You know, it's, you know, we talk about players, whichever the participants are, if they're women or men, they're growing up in the game, enjoying it, loving it. The women's game is moving along leaps and bounds. We saw that in rugby yesterday.
Yeah.
Allow them to participate, but don't take away aspects of our game that are historical.
Most definitely. Keith, what a privilege to have you on the show. One of the biggest names in football, former Premier League referee and one of the highest profile, Keith Hackett there, talking a lot of common sense. How are we going to tackle this woke land grab of our language. For example, when it comes to someone that's a bloke that identifies as a female, right? I'm a libertarian. Good luck to you. Wear a dress. My executive producer, Dean, is wearing a dress today in high heels and he looks gorgeous. I would say he's hot. He's hot. Coming in hot, right? Too much lipstick makes you look cheap. But bottom line is, if you are a guy and you want to wear a frock, good luck to you. But what I'm not going to do is completely eviscerate the language and break the rules of grammar by calling someone that's he or she they. They is a group of people, it's not one person. Make it make sense. Folks, lots more to come. How long has Starmer got? How long has he got as Prime Minister? Will this be his last conference? I've got a statement, by the way, from the FA. I should read that out because I don't want to get cancelled. I've already been cancelled once, Dean. I must stay on air. I have a national duty. This is from the FA. Berks and Bucks FA is the governing body of football in Berkshire and Buckinghamshire. It represents over 600 clubs and 34,000 players across the area. According to its website, it is responsible for leading, protecting and supporting the development of the grassroots game in its entirety across the region. Callum Salhotra, the Community and Inclusion Manager at Berks and Bucks FA, said the new guide will help us all take simple but meaningful steps to ensure our game is inclusive, respectful and welcoming to everyone. A Berks and Bucks FA spokesman said our inclusive language guide was created following consultation with local steering and stakeholder groups. It's designed to act as a supportive tool for those who wish to seek guidance on adopting inclusive language within their club or league environments. They're entitled to their view, but have you ever heard such a load of bunkum in your life? We direct around £100 million towards the FA every year. Should we look at that money? Could that money be better spent? A community and inclusion manager. Whatever happened to the kit man? And someone to mow the grass and paint the white lines? And what about fix the goalposts? Right, that's what we should spend the money on, not a community and inclusion manager. This country's going to the dogs. I'm showing all of them the red card. Next up, Starmer, borrowed time. We'll debate it next.
We have this one person, Mark, that's bleeding the country dry and is now probably going to have to pay $3 trillion in reparations to Palestine now that he's given Hamas, and as Gaza Hamad, the head of Hamas, said, the greatest gift we could have asked for. We weren't a recognised state before, but now we are.
Shocking.
And it's given complete sanctioning till October the 7th. Yeah. The worst atrocity that has taken place on the Jewish and the Israeli community since the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
By popular demand, we're going to play a clip of my interview, my exclusive interview with comedy legend Tommy Cannon, cancelled by ITV. That's just before 8 o'clock. Don't forget, at 8 o'clock, you've got to be here. 2 minutes past 8. This is not a drill. The monologue is back. It is Dolan's Dispatch, and I'll be dealing with Keir Starmer in no uncertain terms. Jane has said, Mark, by the end of this Parliament, you'll not be able to work without digital ID. Will the next thing be, without it, you can't vote? Thank you for that, Jenny. Jane is absolutely fed up with the idea that the FA have banned the term "come on, lads." And Jane has said, I tell you what, Mark, I'll say what I damn well please. And I'm a woman. I have been for 73 years. Who spouts this stuff? Wonderful Tommy Cannon, by the way. Shame on ITV. And Mark, surely team, the word team, is upsetting to lonely people. That's Frank in Bromley. And hi, Mark, please say it gets on my nerves. The scrapping a few years ago of Man of the Match. Lovely rhythm to it. It did what it said, but now it's Player of the Match. I just don't get it. Thank you for that, Phil. More of your messages coming. John is in Crewe. Top of the morning, John.
Yeah, good morning, Mark. If I'm allowed to say that.
Well, please don't call me a man. Okay, I am a non-gender, non-binary alien.
I've got the book. I'll be very careful.
What are you, John? What are you, a man or a lady today, or are you in between?
I'll need to check.
Please don't check on camera because we'll all get taken off air.
Absolutely. The reason I'm ringing, Mark, I keep hearing from everybody that it's going to be 4 years until the next general election. And I think what people need to understand, and many in the media don't seem to, is why did Rishi Sunak not hang on? He could have been there until January of this year, or Christmas, but he went early in July. And incidentally, it cost me over 20,000 by doing so. The reason he went early was not because they thought they could win. They knew they were going to lose the election. He went early because they were getting the message from when they knocked on doors and all the rest of it. And the message was that Reform were taking over and were a threat to them and could wipe them out. So they decided it was better to go early and try the best to strangle Reform at birth. And they nearly succeeded. That way, they could have stopped Reform getting the publicity, the oxygen of publicity that they needed. And because they won 5 seats, in actual fact, I believe that day is very significant. It was like the 4th of July was Independence Day for the UK. Labour thought it was a wonderful result for them. They were going to go back to the 70s with the unions in control, and they thought they could introduce communism properly and increase the size of the government.
And John, unfortunately, it looks like they're doing just that. I wish we had longer, but this is my exclusive interview with Tommy Cannon. Craig is in Stoke-on-Trent. Tommy, take a listen to it. Hi, Craig. Thanks for your call.
Good morning, fellas. How are you?
Very good. What would you like to say to the big man?
Oh, mate, I tell you what, Tommy, I've been waiting a lifetime for this. and I've always wondered. When I was a young lad, mate, I was going through hell, and the only thing we had that you got me through, and I mean this, you and Tommy, got me through the most difficult, horrific times of my life. Looking forward to you guys, that made me laugh. Later, and then years later on, I can't even explain. I've been waiting. I'm 55 now. Excuse me. to give you a personal thank you. I do a lot for charity now as the Shed singer. I even sang a little section of "Together We'll Be Okay." From Bobby's charity when I try and get out.
Yeah.
I can't. You made me the person I am today. I was going through a lot at home. I was in and out of children's homes for certain stuff with the family, and you and waiting with my mum for you pair to come on. Moulded me as a nobody. And ended up travelling the world and back. I only do my charity stuff in a shed, hence the Shed singer thing. But you made me, and I've been waiting a lifetime to try and get the opportunity. I thought maybe one day I'll bump into you, Blackpool or something, and what have you. But I just wanted you, and I've always wondered if you know just words are words, but just how you saved me, and you pair saved me. Literally.
Thank you very much.
And I've always wondered at 55 if you ever really knew just what you guys did for some of us. You were literally all we had to look forward to bring some sunlight into our lives.
Craig, I'm so glad. Isn't that an incredible call from Craig? Craig, you're a star for opening up about that. You lads, you were warm, Tommy, and you were funny.
No. Yeah, I mean, wow. I just, I can't understand why, when you get a message like that from that lovely man, why ITV have done what they've done. It's just heartbreaking. And I know Bobby's up there and thinking to himself, what the heck's going on? Because it's just I cannot understand it. I can't, and I'll never be able to understand what's gone on.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan, this is Talk Breakfast. Great to have your company. Your weekend starts here, a big 2 hours to come. As the Prime Minister embarks on his party's annual conference, he wakes up to the news that he's the least popular Prime Minister since records began. Just 14 months after winning a landslide victory, this week's conference should be a celebration, but instead it's looking like a wake. We'll bring analysis from across the political spectrum. How long does the PM have? And who are the runners and riders to replace him as leader of the party and the country? Is Andy Burnham or Angela Rayner the answer to Britain's problems? Or can Starmer say, can he turn it around? He's telling the press today that he can turn it around. Can he fix the economy as it flirts with bankruptcy? Can he stop the boats and bring immigration down to sensible levels? Can this ship be turned around, or is the Labour project ultimately doomed? Some very big names joining us today. The former chief spin doctor of Reform UK on Nigel Farage's plan for a political revolution. The political editor of The Sun on Sunday, Kate Ferguson, with an exclusive in regard to the Home Secretary who thinks she can stop the boats. I shall not be holding my breath on this Sunday morning, but let's hear her out. And the doyen of political journalism, a true Fleet Street heavyweight, Trevor Kavanagh, on the future for this government. When are we going to get an election, and who wins it once it happens? And here's a question for you on this Sunday morning. Is it now the duty of all senior figures within the Conservative Party to support Reform UK? Is it time for the right to unite? And is it time for not just Tory grandees, but Conservative voters to back Reform, back Nigel Farage, so we can have real change? I'll be asking one of the biggest names in the Conservative Party, Sir Michael Fabricant, live on the show. Is it the duty of all Tories to back Reform? A very big reaction to yesterday's exclusive interview with comedy legend Tommy Cannon, who's been cancelled by ITV. Cannon and Ball had over 20 million viewers in the 1980s. They were the biggest stars in the country, and yet ignored by ITV during their 70th birthday anniversary celebrations. So we've reached out to ITV and we've not had a squeak out of them. We said, when are you going to put Cannonball back on TV with reruns? When are they going to be acknowledged and celebrated? Not a word from ITV, but you can watch the full interview with the amazing Tommy Cannon on YouTube. Just head to Talk. You'll find it there, an incredible interview. It's gone viral for good reason. And we're going viral today because we're talking sense, we're dropping truth bombs, and it's all about your opinions. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. So much to get through. As the saying goes, let's talk. And as always, at this time, we start with Dolan's dispatch. Keir Starmer should try to enjoy this party conference because it will probably be his last. I don't think even his worst critics could have anticipated that his first year in office would go so badly wrong. It didn't bode well from the start, with a landslide victory born only of parliamentary arithmetic, not public popularity. 3 million fewer people voted for Keir Starmer than they did for the execrable Jeremy Corbyn in 2017. Contrary to popular belief, Starmer actually ran an awful campaign. It was a terrible campaign in which the answer to every question about inflation, immigration, crime, you name it, was to tell us that his father was a toolmaker. That was it. How are you going to get inflation down? Oh, I can answer that. My father was a toolmaker. I beg your pardon. Well, a maker of useful tools, Starmer Senior most certainly was. Now, the Prime Minister's first setback was almost immediate, and it was Freebiegate, which revealed that Keir Starmer is provably the greediest member of Parliament, having accrued over £100,000 worth of freebies in the past Parliament, right, including concert tickets and all the rest of it. This is a multi-millionaire ex-lawyer who wasn't even willing to pay for his glasses and his suits. Let me tell you that the suit I'm wearing today, I fully paid for myself, many thanks to my tailors at Primark. Not only is a perfect cut for me in the great colour, but it's machine washable, you're welcome. So Starmer wouldn't pay for his glasses and suits. That was the beginning of what would prove to be an awful premiership. Man of the people? I don't think so. So Keir Starmer is now doing such a bad job and is so historically unpopular that his own party now consider Angela Rayner, Andy Burnham and even, wait for it, Sadiq Khan to be a better alternative. Normally, politicians are either undermined by sleaze, dysfunctional governance or a failed policy agenda. Well, amazingly, Starmer has managed all three. He's done all three. He appointed a corruption minister who's now being prosecuted for, wait for it, corruption, a homelessness minister who evicted her tenants, and a housing minister who didn't pay her stamp duty. Beyond sleaze, there's a worry about governance. The number 10 operation is now in total disarray, with Starmer's chief of staff facing scrutiny for £750,000 worth of donations to Starmer's leadership campaign, which is now fishier than Rick Stein's recycling bin. What is going on? We need answers. Their head of communications at number 10 has left. They are rats leaving a sinking ship. But any government can handle allegations of sleaze and even a chaotic administration as long as the policies are working. See, I've got no doubt that Donald Trump's White House is absolute chaos. I've got no doubt that the White House, as we speak, is a circus. I've got no doubt about that, because Donald Trump is a very idiosyncratic person. But his policies are working, so who cares? Yes, number 10, I should say the White House. The White House is a madhouse, but Donald Trump has closed the border, waged a successful war on wokery and waste, reduced inflation, grown the economy, and drastically improved the terms by which America trades with the world. So if that's a dysfunctional madhouse, can we please have one here as well? Instead, Starmer has grown the economy by shrinking it, reduced energy bills by increasing them, and smashed the gangs by empowering them. Forget about standing up for working people. He has clobbered businesses that employ them. Make it make sense. But what could we expect from a man whose political barometer is always pointing in the wrong direction? Don't forget, this is the man that campaigned to reverse Brexit and wanted his, and I quote, friend Jeremy Corbyn to become Britain's Prime Minister. It's of little surprise that this broken clock of a man, who isn't even right twice a day, should have been the architect of the Chagos Islands surrender, which will cost us billions. It's unlikely that a man of this poor judgment would make any good decisions. This is a guy that waged a heartless war on farmers who struggle at the best of times to make a living as they provide food for the nation in all weathers, in all conditions. Being a farmer is a thankless task. I love and salute our farmers. They should get tax breaks, not tax hikes. It's little surprise that this man of consistently erroneous judgment, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, decided to let pensioners shiver in their homes last winter, that made economic growth even more elusive thanks to a hyper-socialist blitzkrieg of red tape and workers' rights laws that will only accelerate our descent into bankruptcy. A personal bugbear of mine is the scrapping of 0 hours contracts, the freedom of which 1 million people enjoyed last year. You see, companies won't be bullied into giving those same folk fixed contracts. It's not going to happen. They just won't hire them at all. How does that help Keir Starmer's working people? I'm going to help working people by putting working people out of work. Don't forget, unemployment is up. Inflation is up. Government borrowing up. The cost of government debt up, up, up. Don't get me started on the boats. Here's the thing, though. This is not all about Starmer. There is an ideological pathology at the heart of this governing party that goes beyond Starmer's ineffectual wooden personality. Starmer is not the only problem. The fish rots from the head. But this is a guy that leads a party that thinks the answer to our current problems is looser rules around immigration. More net zero, a bigger state, more welfare, more debt, more spending, and obviously higher taxes. Let me get you the front page of today's Sunday Telegraph. Wait for this. I'm going to hold it up. If you're watching on YouTube, take a look at this headline, right? This is truly, truly Yana, get me the camera on that. Give me a zoom, right? Look at this. That is the front page of the Sunday Telegraph. And I quote, "Ministers beg Reeves to unleash spending." You heard me right. Unleash spending. Chancellor faces revolt over austerity-light fiscal rules on the eve of Labour conference. Did they not get the memo? Do they not realise that we are in the red, that Britain is broke, and this is the governing party of this country? But how can we be surprised? And as we look at the nation's balance sheet, Margaret Thatcher, do you remember Margaret Hilda Thatcher? A true leader, a person of principle. She got things wrong. She wasn't perfect, but she transformed Britain from the sick man of Europe into a global economic, military, diplomatic and commercial powerhouse. Wouldn't we bite your hand off for leadership like that in 2025? So as we look at broken Britain and the nation's absolutely ruinous balance sheet, Margaret Thatcher is once again proved right with her famous line that the problem with socialists is that eventually they run out of other people's money. Well, they have run out of ours. The Tories were terrible. They absolutely were. They do have the excuse, at least, of COVID and Ukraine. And for the punishment beating of the Conservatives, albeit well-deserved, we are now paying a mighty price. Because Labour, as I feared and predicted, are far worse even than the Tories. Things are going to unravel further in the months ahead, I'm afraid to say, as we flirt with a 1970s-style economic crisis, as legal and illegal immigration continue to soar, and as inflation, low growth and unemployment become baked-in systemic features of our economy. I'm not sure anyone would particularly want to take over in 3 or 4 years' time, because then, I mean, let's be honest, what is Britain going to look like in 2029? People will be serving life sentences in prison for hurty words on the internet. British government debt will be more expensive than a night out with Paris Hilton. And Britain will have a surveillance state powered by digital ID that would have even the Chinese Communist Party blushing. So here's my prediction. Things will get worse before they get worse still. The Labour Party conference bars will be packed this week, absolutely, but not with celebration, but with delegates drowning their sorrows. You see, they've left the Last Chance saloon. They've had their last orders, and it's a taxi for Sir Keir Starmer. Meanwhile, the rest of us will have to face the hangover. 0344 499 1000. Your reaction, please. Lenny is in Ashford. Lenny.
Good morning.
Labour Party conference. Do you know what? I want to go to the Labour Party conference and drown my sorrows because I think we're doomed.
Well, I agree, totally agree with everything you have just said. And all it is just common sense and the truth. And that is two things the Labour Party are suffering with. No common sense and no truth. you know. But anyway, why I phoned up was I have a different opinion why Rishi called the election when he did. And I believe, and the knives were out because there were people in the Conservative Party wanted to bring Boris back. And what was happening, I think Rishi, there wasn't a cabinet meeting regarding the election. There was just a few close people in number 10 who actually knew what he was going to do.
Yeah.
And he just knew his days were numbered. And out of pure spite, he called the election when he knew the Tories had no chance of a win in the election.
And actually, do you not think, Lenny, that if he'd clung on until January 2025, at least we would have had less damage to the country that we did have as a result of Starmer winning in July of 2024?
Well, we was only going one way, you know. I mean, to let you know, I was a Conservative the majority of my adult life. And I realise they totally changed their ideology.
Yeah.
And what it was, I could see it for a long time ago. I mean, in 2010, that was when Cameron first got in, there was nothing but lies. Now, what happened in 2000, they were saying, I will reduce immigration to tens of thousands.
Yeah.
In 2011, Damien Green had a silent amnesty and allowed 160,000 to, he gave permanent residence to 160,000 people that was on being checked out.
Yeah.
And it was called the silent amnesty. And then I knew, that was my first thing. I thought, these are a load of lies. It's nothing's doesn't match. And then my own effort in trying to create jobs in a Conservative council where I live with a Conservative MP in Ashford, the obstacles they put in my way, I finally achieved it. And on that site now, it's a 4-acre site that is all designed for all small businessmen and startups. But I had to fight a Conservative council and a Conservative MP to achieve it.
What happened, Lenny, to the culture and the ideology of the Conservative Party? Why did they shift left? Because it's only worth being fair to Labour to say that, yes, they've made things worse in 14 months, but they inherited a legacy of high debt, high tax, wokery, and they even began the negotiations for the Chagos sell-off. What happened to the Tories?
Well, this is what I truly believe, and that is the Tories, they changed for the good of the country, and I don't think the Tories did actually do much. It was their donors. They changed to a party where the lucrative contract took control. And if you look at everything with our problems, lucrative contracts for donors took priority over the good of the country.
And what about, just on that, that's an interesting point you mentioned about the funding of the party, and that definitely will be the tail that wags the dog, no question. Look at Labour and the unions, Lenny. But how can you explain the Conservatives signing us up for net zero? How can you explain the Conservatives doing lockdowns? How can you explain the Conservatives having an open border policy with 1 million people entering the country in a year?
Well, my honest opinion that the information that I gained listening, because I don't have a television.
That's why you're so informed, Lenny.
Yeah, well,
because you're not being brainwashed.
Yeah, well, I get all my information listening to debates, and that policy came from Mrs. Boris, because I believe she
Old Carrie.
Yeah, and I think she actually had Boris in the palm of her hand, and they were her policies and not of the Conservative Party.
Yes, I think he wanted to say at one point in his speech that our economy should be more feminine. I mean, if that's not an example that she's got into his head, I don't know what is. It's unforgivable. Lenny, I've got to run, but I'm going to be asking in the next hour one of the absolute grandees of the Tory party, Sir Michael Fabricant, right, Lenny, who I'm sure you know. I'm going to be asking him, is it the duty of all Conservatives to now back reform? What say you?
I totally agree with it. With Nigel, I mean, I listen to the way people are trying to discredit him on the simplest of debates. But Farage is like he was answering a question the other day about swans and that, and all Nigel did was told the truth, and every other stations were twisting what he said. And all Nigel did was spoke the truth, and I can tell you that there's nothing wrong with eating a dog or a cat. It won't do you no harm, and I can prove that to you. But
not now, please. Family show.
No.
We upset the kids.
But
we love Fido. He's a little.
But our our way of living, we don't eat them. But there are countries that do, and that you got to accept that.
Yes, and if people are grabbing swans or taking, fish from, curated ponds or whatever, then it's unacceptable. It's not the British way. And if it's happening, we're going to talk about it. We'll call it out. If someone is killing swans, we're going to talk about it. And what we're not going to do is silence, Lenny, for fear of offending people, community tensions and all that nonsense.
Totally agree with you. Let the truth be told.
Oh, my goodness. I think we should clip that. Let the truth be told should be the mantra for this show and for the channel. Lenny, call me again soon. Really enjoyed your company. 0344 499 1000. Next up, will this be Starmer's last conference as Prime Minister? We'll debate that next.
Meghan Markle is quaking in her boots at the terrifying prospect of a tell-all book. The difficult Duchess suddenly severed all ties with Canadian Jessica Mulroney after the celebrity stylist was accused of white privilege in a race row over her failure to support the Black Lives Matter movement. Jessica is reported to have been offered a $1 million deal to write the story of her life and times with Prince Harry's social climbing American wife.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, I'm delighted to say one of my favourite political journalists is in the building. It is Benjamin Butterworth. Are you still at the I paper, by the way?
I've been there for 7 years.
Are you you're like quite senior now? When are they giving you the editor's job?
I think, well, I think if they're still going to sell any copies, then probably not anytime soon. But
if I was the backer, if I was Lebedev, I'd be throwing money at you. Let me tell you that.
He sold it years ago. It's actually owned by the Daily Mail Group, so it's the Daily Mail, the Metro, and the I are the same newspaper company these days.
Good. Oh, when are you going to start having some common sense Daily Mail opinions then, Benjamin Butterworth?
I have actually been asked to write for the Daily Mail in the past, but unfortunately I wasn't willing to. There was no price for which I would provide common sense, so I didn't take it
the problem is that would make you very unpopular at your posh North London dinner parties, wouldn't it? Eh?
I definitely live in South London. I'm not that
cancelled. You'd be down in the gutter with us common sense folk. Listen, let's have a look at the front pages. Sunday Telegraph: ministers beg Reeves to unleash spending. Chancellor faces revolt over austerity-like fiscal rules on the eve of Labour Party conference. Sun on Sunday: strictly stars protection. Death threat Skinner gets Spider-Man bodyguard. Isn't it terrible? For the great crime of posing with for a photograph with the Vice President of the United States, Thomas Skinner, who's in Strictly, now needs security. Sunday Times: I think we can pull this round, says Starmer. And Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson not welcome at the royal family's Christmas celebrations. And some rare good news for the country. The Observer: roses and thorns. England's women win the World Cup. More power to them. What a great victory. Where do we start? Starmer says he can turn this ship around, Benjamin. Can he?
Well, I think he certainly has to say that at Labour Party conference in the coming days, because people in the Labour Party are pretty miserable at the moment. I spoke to a Labour MP a couple of weeks ago, last week in fact. I've been speaking to quite a lot of them since they came back from recess, and the mood is pretty poor. Between the reshuffle, Angela Rayner, Lord Mandelson, all the scandals, it's making them feel quite surprised that a year in, the party is doing this as badly as it is. And I spoke to one Labour MP who was called into Downing Street by Morgan McSweeney, who is the Prime Minister's right-hand man. And he actually told me that after sitting down and being told what Keir Starmer, how he's going to turn it around, he went back to his office in Portcullis House where the MPs do their day-to-day work, and he said he started crying. And it was the first time since the election where he'd felt so miserable. But he said he did that because he'd listened to the argument that Starmer's Downing Street was putting forward and said that he doesn't think they can turn it around. So I think Keir Starmer will be going to conference not just with the polls, which put him as the most unpopular Prime Minister in 50 years, more so than Liz Truss or Boris Johnson when they were ousted, but also his own team is feeling like they're not delivering what they were elected to do.
Is this a problem of policy or personality?
Well, I think it's a problem of story, which is somewhere between the two, because what he's got is I think he's an intelligent man. I think he's a hard-working man. I don't think he's some kind of compulsive liar in the way that maybe I would say Boris Johnson was. But he doesn't have a story to tell the country. You know, things are happening in a vacuum because he can't explain why he's in Downing Street, what he wants the country to look like in 5 years' time. And so even when they do things that are probably quite popular, you know, the NHS, for example, doesn't look, you know, it looks like it's going in the right direction, but he's unable to articulate it. And I think even those of us that would want to defend the Labour Prime Minister, you kind of wonder what you're defending, because he's not got a narrative of what's happening to the country. And that is where you see someone that was obviously a very high-level civil servant in a previous job, head of public prosecutions, but he's not a politician. And it's a rather brutal way to find that out. You know, we used to say Rishi Sunak didn't seem like a particularly political person. Well, Keir Starmer makes him look like Gorbachev or something.
It's an interesting one that you said he's not a liar like Boris Johnson, but he's slippery, isn't he?
I can hear people screaming.
Yes, I think so. I think you've just been cancelled. But he's politically agile and likes a U-turn, and I think he's politically dishonest, isn't he? Like, he presented himself as a sort of Corbynite lefty when seeking the leadership of the party. Minutes after winning, he shifts centre ground and suddenly he's Tony Blair 2.0. He likes to characterise people concerned about the direction of the country as far right, but then suddenly he's wrapping himself in the flag. I mean, this guy sends mixed signals at the best of times.
I mean, I suppose what I mean by liar is that I always felt like Boris Johnson, I was going to say he's the kind of person that would cheat on his wife. He did many times. That's a matter of public record. And so I don't think Keir Starmer, is that kind of person. But I think you're right to say that when it comes to the decision-making, the bit that actually matters, he's pretty unpredictable. And I think we've seen that again and again. And the problem is he's always reacting to events. So yesterday I was listening to a podcast with Leo Varadkar, who was the Taoiseach of Ireland for many years.
And during the Brexit negotiations, of course.
Indeed, yes, when Keir Starmer had the opposition role with that. So I think they've met and worked together. But Leo Varadkar made a really good point, which is that when Blair came in 97, he sought a mandate for all sorts of massive reforms in how Britain runs. And so you kind of knew what he was going to do, and he had a right to do it because the public had voted on those ideas. But the Starmer strategy a year and a half ago was just to get into Downing Street at any cost.
Yeah.
So what you describe is the fact that he would say whatever was politically convenient. And so the problem he's got now he's in power is that he has 300 or 405 MPs or something, but he doesn't have the mandate for the individual things he's doing because he didn't explain them before the election, and that's why he's becoming unstuck.
What he needs to do, I would suggest, is cut taxes to grow the economy, because growth is critical, particularly for a left-wing progressive administration, because Labour governments exist, whether you like it or not, to spend money. So he needs growth, and I think the only way you can do that is to cut taxes.
I also exist to spend money, so
well, yeah.
I identify.
Well, I know, I can see today's outfit. Your stuff. TK Maxx, the share price has gone right through the roof. But I would argue that they need growth. I don't see how you can do that without lower taxes and a business-friendly environment. So he needs to do that. He needs to cut spending because we're broke and we live beyond our means. He needs to stop the boats unilaterally, and he needs to bring legal immigration down to sensible levels, 50 to 100k a year tops. He's not going to do any of those things because his party won't let him.
Well, I mean, you say that. First of all, I feel
that's an amazing manifesto, isn't it?
I feel a Mark Dolan party coming on, right? Farage should watch out. You're
definitely.
On the march.
I'm going to do, because there need to be more parties of the right. There's not enough at the moment.
Indeed. I mean, I'm sure you'll have a split within weeks.
I'm going to fall out with Ben. The first thing I'm going to do is fire Ben Habib. He doesn't work for me, but I'm going to cancel him anyway, because that's what you have to do.
On the actual question, you're right. Taxes are the highest they've been for working people, whatever that phrase might mean. And
it's you, Ben.
Indeed, it's
with your 3 or 4 jobs in the media.
I have many jobs. But so in one of the front pages today is a story that Labour will announce 300,000 new homes are to be built.
Yeah.
So that's new towns. One of them will be in Milton Keynes. I don't know if that's public or not, but it is. So
there you go. Broke the embargo.
The Prime Minister. Well, no, it's not that. I learned it weeks ago. The Prime Minister will announce those new homes. Now, that is the kind of thing that we desperately need. Young people, and by young I mean under 40, it's very difficult to buy a flat, not just in London and the South East. These days, many of the major cities are too expensive.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of thing that would be good for growth, that would help people out. The problem is 300,000 homes presumably will take at least 5 years for all of those to have appeared, with the planning process being so slow. And then where do you get this growth to cut the taxes in the first place? I think it's a bit of a catch-22.
It is a catch-22, and I don't think, and please let me know if you disagree, 03444991000, but I don't think it's going to wash with my viewers and listeners, 12 new towns and 300,000 homes, when legal net immigration is so high. Because as far as the public are concerned, the only credible solution to our infrastructure challenges, whether it's housing, GP appointments, school places, all the rest of it, is the elephant in the room, which is the number of people that come here every year, which, as we discovered, year ending 2024, was 1 million. Yes, that's of the Conservatives' making, but it's now Starmer's problem.
Well, I think the numbers have halved in the years since then, haven't they? But that's
yeah,
still...
but we had, I think it was to April 2024, it was 750,000. But yeah, they're anticipated to drop into the 300k per year. But, you know, my listeners and viewers are not stupid, and they can see how many people are coming and have come, and then they look at 300 houses, which will take 5 years, as you say, and they go, well, that's doesn't touch the sides.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for context, the previous 2 years, the most recent 2 years for which we have figures, are the highest immigration levels on record, and we gained 1 million people in those 2 years, which it previously took us 20 years to add that many people to Britain's population. So, you know, this isn't normal, right? I'm, you know, generally pro-immigration, but actually it's worth having some context that this is not a normal level or a sustainable level or a level that Britain has tested. People often talk about Tony Blair and when the Eastern European countries were added into the European Union. I mean, that was nothing like the scale of what we've had since Brexit. And so, you know, there is a mandate question again, right, which is that the British public have clearly voted to cut immigration year after year. That's probably what the real message of Brexit was, and yet it has gone through the roof. And so, you know, on a basic level, if you don't do what people are voting for, well, they try something different. And we see that in the polls.
Most definitely. What is a correct number for legal immigration? I think if we can all agree that the boats should be unilaterally stopped, the channel crossings should be zero, that's my view, zero, okay, a big fat diddly squat. What is a correct number for legal immigration? Give me your numbers, text me and call me. What is a correct number for legal immigration into this country? We'll debate that next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, folks, what is an appropriate level of legal immigration into the country? Nigel is in the capital, London. Morning, Nigel.
And a very good morning to you, Mark, and a very good morning to your guest, who's, I presume, sitting across you. And
yeah, I mean, what he is, he's a very depressed Labour supporter, I've got to tell you, and he wants to know when the pub's open because he needs a stiff drink. But Nigel, I know you're going to talk about housing in a second, but I'm going to ask everybody, what is a correct number? Because a lot of politicians say, oh, I'm not going to put a number. Well, I'm putting a number on it. At 50,000 a year, maybe 100k in an emergency, that's where legal immigration should be. What about you? Put a number on it for me, Nigel.
Well, I don't think you can put a number. I think what we do is in this country... No, I'm going to answer it in a way you're going to like my answer, I'm sure. I'm going to polish your guest's ego at the same time. I think that we welcome legal immigration, of course we do, but we do not welcome illegal immigration, which is an offence under Section 24 of the Immigration Act, which people seem to forget. So if you come here legally, we welcome you. If you come here illegally, you're not welcome.
All right, but Nigel doesn't want to have a figure, and many politicians don't. Can you put a number on a correct inflow into the country annually? Because, of course, back in the day, it was tens of thousands, and we prospered as a country.
The problem with putting a figure on it, and here's where I sound like a politician, but people often talk about David Cameron had a policy of I want net immigration of 100,000 or lower. He never did it, but that was his policy. Now, the problem with a figure like that is that net immigration means that someone has to leave for someone to come in at those figures, right? That's how you get to such a conclusion. And so I think it's very hard for a government to actually gauge that, to do that in real time, which is one of the reasons why you won't find people giving figures now, because, you know, you would have to have a load of British people leave in order to judge how many people you were going to let in.
Well, Nigel, you're pretty sceptical about this announcement that's coming from the Prime Minister this week about 12 new towns and 300,000 homes. Why?
Well, first of all, if you remember Keir Starmer's election pledge, we're going to build 1.5 million homes in 5 years. People seem to have forgotten this. Well, if you do the mathematics of this, it's very simple. That's 821 homes a day, which is absolutely impossible to build. First of all, and has he built any of them? So he's going to add another 300,000. There's 1.8 million homes in 5 years. You can't do this. It's a physical impossibility. And the other thing that Keir Starmer and his band of merry men and women haven't told everybody, where is the infrastructure to support this? Now, we live in the US as well, and in the United States, if you build a subdivision, you have to have the infrastructure to support it, i.e. schools, 911 responders, a supermarket, a gas station. So it's going to be another drain on resources for everybody living there. Where are these children going to go to school? You know, where are they going to be looked after? God forbid there's an emergency. And the other thing, of course, is you cannot build them. Anyone knows who's having some building work done at home. You have a new kitchen or extension, but it takes 3 months. It takes forever. So suddenly, 821 homes a day, bang, not going to happen.
Wise words, Nigel. I suspect you're right, and that is an issue. Angela Rayner, by the way, was, of course, the housing minister. She's going to be lurking in the wings this week. Do you think she's plotting the mother of all comebacks?
No, but 821 homes a day, I think, is how many Angela Rayner buys.
It's a good point.
We're just keeping up with her
She
demands.
never knows which one she's living in. She is, though, is she not? I was on a podcast the other day and we were talking about, you know, is there a Boris figure in the Labour Party who's, you know, always the heir apparent and the person that will come in to the rescue? I don't really see Wes Streeting or Sadiq Khan or Andy Burnham as the Boris figure, but I suspect Angela Rayner most definitely is.
I have to, I mean, I don't think that, at least in the short term. She's very good at politics.
Do you not think she's box office, isn't she?
Well, she's very good at politics, and she's definitely got a following and a popularity among some of the public. People know who she is, which is better than most people. In Boris Johnson's case, that's a great comparison. Ultimately, people knowing who he is and not hating him was an advantage that few other politicians had. But I think, you know, she resigned, she had to quit by her own mistakes. And so that's why I'm not convinced she's going to try and come back anytime soon, because it just wouldn't be authentic, it wouldn't be plausible. You know, nobody tricked her, right? It was her own fault.
But it's easier for her to come back since she's left the government. Because she doesn't have to be concerned about disloyalty at this stage, does she?
I tell you, I think Keir Starmer would want her to come back because she was such a useful part of his coalition. Bringing over the trade unions and people on the left of the party, she was the way that he could get into those people, that he could persuade them. I do think, though, I mean, I know this for fact, that there are people on the sort of Blairite wing, to put it simply, of the Parliamentary Labour Party who are plotting to maybe not bring down Keir Starmer straight away, but to be ready for when that happens. So there are manoeuvres on, and I think someone like Bridget Phillipson or Wes Streeting or Darren Jones, another cabinet minister, I think those are the people to watch.
Benjamin, it's so great to see you. Do come back and see us soon. Benjamin Butterworth, broadcaster and journalist. Next up, forget about the migrant hotels, the eye-watering cost of taxis for people that have entered the country illegally, plus a concerned Epping mum. That's next.
Asylum seekers are being ferried around the country in taxis to the tune of hundreds of thousands of pounds. There's one taxi company which was making £344,000 a month.
You're
right?
kidding.
I am not joking. £344,000 a month. They go for dentist appointments. They're going to visit the Home Office. In some cases, they're going to the mosque. And they're going in taxis because the Home Office says basically these people need to be treated differently from ordinary British citizens because they are vulnerable and they can't get the bus, even though they get a free bus pass.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
The world has gone completely mad. The FA, the Football Association, are banning players and staff from saying, "Come on, lads," at a football match. Has the world gone mad? Ladies and gentlemen has been banned as well, because we're all gender-neutral aliens now. This from Anna in Surrey. Mark, Sandhursty Berkshire Council is taking the union flags down too. Football as well. Maybe someone needs to look more closely at the Berkshire authorities. And how about this from Andy and Thatcher? Mark, it's great to have you back at the home of common sense. Imagine my surprise that Berks and Bucks FA have disabled commenting on their X account. Yes, it speaks volumes. Folks, we're going to get to the mad world of wokery in just a moment. But first, speaking of madness, a taxi company which has a £4 million a year deal to ferry migrants around the nation has seen profits soar more than tenfold since taking on the lucrative contract. This according to a Sun on Sunday exclusive. Forget about the migrant hotels. It's £4 million a year of your money on mine on limousines, on taxis, on a Mercedes-Benz or an Audi or some other fancy brand, shipping people around who have entered the country illegally. Make it make sense. Well, this Wednesday, there's going to be a Pink Lady demonstration in Parliament Square to protest against the issue of illegal immigration and particularly the housing of illegal immigrants in hotels. And I'm delighted to say that the Reform candidate for Epping, Orla Minahane, joins us now. Good morning, Orla.
Good morning, Mark. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, admittedly, the cost of the taxis is a fraction of what the hotels cost, but it demonstrates a completely ludicrous situation.
The whole thing's ludicrous, Mark, and shamelessly to talk about my pink protest, well, not my pink protest, our pink protest on Wednesday. That's why I'm wearing this T-shirt. We have joined up ladies from Canary Wharf, from Epping, from Cheshunt, all of whom will be joining women from across this city and across the country on Wednesday in Parliament Square, because we have had enough of being ignored, Mark. No matter what we do, no matter how many times we protest outside hotels to talk about the safety of our children, we're being ignored. So we are taking our message to Parliament, to Westminster, to say to this government, stop ignoring us, stop ignoring the fact that we are so concerned about what is happening to this country and this immense influx of non-vetted men, strangers coming in, being plonked in the middle of cities and towns up and down this country with no, risk assessment or no consideration for any of the residents or the children in those towns.
For those listening who aren't near a migrant hotel, can you give us a flavour of what it does for locals, how it makes life for people living in a community when there is a migrant hotel in one?
I mean, in Epping, for example, there's about 138 men in a hotel, which is in close proximity to 4 schools. Now, if those men in that hotel were screened and they were all, say, for instance, they were veterans that had been taken off the streets and we knew who they were and they were put in there, there wouldn't be an issue. But the fact is that these men are undocumented, unscreened. And in many, many cases, a lot of these men have crossed the channel, escaping other countries that they've been in where they've tried to seek asylum and it's been, it's sort of been declined, or they've committed a crime and they're leaving and coming here. So you're literally putting these men in the middle of towns in suburbia. Now, Epping, the Bell is actually quite small, but some of these areas, the Britannia and Canary Wharf, are far bigger, 800, 1,000 men. In Braintree, there's a barracks which has over 1,500 fighting age men on the outskirts of a tiny little town. And these men walk around willy-nilly mixing with everybody. It's just not okay, Mark. It presents massive risk. And if they'd all been good as gold and behaved themselves, there wouldn't be an issue. But they haven't. There's incidents of sexual assault, which has been proven.
Yeah.
There is antisocial behaviour. There's intimidation. And, women have got to a stage where they are uprising and saying, why are you not listening to us? You're putting the most vulnerable people in society at risk, and that is not on. And
yes,
it has got to end.
And actually young men sitting around in a hotel doing nothing for hours and days on end would be a problem at the best of times.
Absolutely.
But we're talking about men, which is an aggravating factor, who come from different cultures, who in some cases have a completely different attitude towards women.
Absolutely, completely different. And they've come from places where, in some cases, if you look at Iran or Afghanistan, their women literally cover up, head to toe. So, and they are absolutely the bottom of the pile as far as their rights are concerned, their freedom of speech, etc., their well-being. So that mentality is being brought here into the UK, and it is being translated in the way they're treating our women and children.
And as we saw with the grooming gangs, the attitude of some foreign nationals from overseas is different to women who are not of the faith that they follow. So it's not just that women are second-class citizens, but if you're not a Muslim or some other religion, then you're seen as fair game, as we saw with the grooming gangs.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, look, it doesn't matter what race you are, what colour you are, and where you come from. Every mother and every woman has a fundamental need to protect their children. It's what we're about. It's who we are. But the statistics show you that white girls are much more likely to be assaulted than any other race or colour or religion. So, you're seeing that from the rape gangs, and you're seeing that now. The pink protest was started by women in the hotels in East London and Essex, but this is spreading across the UK because women have not necessarily been the ones that have been forefront in the protests or demonstrations. But now women are saying, no, we're not having this anymore. We're coming together and we want our voices to be heard. And what the pink protest is doing is giving them that platform in a safe environment with other women. And we have women as old as 90, Mark, coming on Wednesday, who are saying to me, I can't leave this life knowing that I've done nothing to stand up for my grandchildren, and in some cases great-grandchildren. I have to make my voice heard.
Very, very briefly, can I ask you all, is the accommodation of these folk a slight red herring? We can all agree they shouldn't be in hotels at great cost to the community, safety and financial cost. But actually, is it a slight red herring? Because these folk shouldn't be accommodated anywhere because they've entered the country illegally. And if they are accommodated somewhere, they should be detained.
100%. There's no curfew on these people, Mark.
So even if they go to an army barracks, okay, that solves a slight problem, but they can still come into town centres and still be a problem.
Absolutely. They're not, then people come out of prison and they're tagged. So why aren't these guys tagged? They're not tagged. They're free to wander around to do what they want. In fact, the barracks in Braintree, they've got minibuses that bring them into town and take them to Freeport, to the shopping centres. I mean, it's just absolutely insane.
It is wild. Now, Orla, you'll agree with me that we don't want to demonise people who are seeking a better life, fleeing persecution, but this is obviously not how you tackle illegal immigration. Briefly, how do people find out more about Wednesday?
So Wednesday, if you follow me on X or on Instagram, but there's also an X page, which is Pink Ladies. And, most of the ladies who are on X and on social media will be advertising what's happening on Wednesday. And we're delighted to have Susan Hall, who is a member of the London Assembly, who's one of our guest speakers, so you can follow her on socials as well.
It's been brilliant to talk to you. Thank you so much to Reform candidate for Epping, Orla Minihane. 03444991000, your reaction to what she had to say. Next up, Sir Keir Starmer has woken up to the news that he's the least popular Prime Minister since records began. We'll bring reaction.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash, 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 smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... The smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was a was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source. Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer is on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work.
It's crap. It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast, a very big hour to come. Your weekend starts here. Happy Sunday, one and all. A very unhappy Sunday for the Prime Minister as Keir Starmer embarks on his party's annual conference. He wakes up to the news that he's the least popular PM since records began, just 14 months after winning a landslide victory. This week's conference should be a celebration, but instead it's looking like a wake. Well, we'll bring analysis from across the political spectrum. How long does the PM have, and who are the runners and riders to replace him, potentially, as leader of the party and the country? Also this morning, given the challenges now facing the country, is it the patriotic duty of all Conservatives now to back Nigel Farage's Reform UK? I'll be asking top Tory grandee Sir Michael Fabricant. And as always, your opinions are my priority. Book your place on the show. Matt is taking your calls. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. You can watch us. This is a TV show. And Jana is directing the output, doing a great job, finding my best side. I'm like Marlene Dietrich folk, and I have to have the right side. She's got me perfectly lit today. So if you want to watch the show, head over to YouTube. We're on the radio, of course, DAB+, online. We are everywhere. This is Talk. So, to coin a phrase, let's talk. And let's do just that in the company of one of the biggest names in political journalism, Fleet Street legend and former political editor of the Sun newspaper, Trevor Kavanagh. Good morning, Trevor.
Good morning, Mark.
Trevor, is Sir Keir Starmer a busted flush?
Yes, I think he's been a busted flush pretty much since he was elected. But now he's actually a dead man walking. It's just a matter of time. Will he go on after the budget? Will he go after the local elections, the loss of Wales, the Labour stronghold to reform? It's hard to tell when he will go, but it's quite clear but he's not going to be around to fight the next general election.
Is he helped by the fact that there isn't a Boris Johnson type figure waiting in the wings to take over at number 10?
Yes, this is exactly the problem for the Labour Party. The Labour Party is totally divided, not just in two, but in fragments. So there's no one particular crusader that they can all rally behind. And I think that Andy Burnham is certainly not the one that they would pick if they had a choice. I mean, he's a retread anyway. He's been around several times for this particular job and he's failed to get it. And the reason he's failed to get it is because he has failed to win the majority required to do so. And that will happen again. He hasn't even got a seat yet. But forgetting about Andy Burnham, which I think is quite easy to do, there aren't anyone else except one. And I think this is almost a certainty. What you've got in Shabbana Mahmood is a Home Secretary who is actually impressing quite a lot of people across the spectrum, not just in the Labour ranks, but in the Conservative Party too, as you will have seen from the latest issue of The Spectator, which is a conservative voice for politics. And as the Home Secretary, she has quite a lot of power to do things which will resonate with those voters who want those things done, particularly on the issue of immigration. She could easily become not just Labour's first woman leader, but our first Muslim Prime Minister.
Well, she might be a better candidate than Sir Keir Starmer, because I honestly believe that this country needs a very, very potent dose of conservatism. And by that, I mean that we need to cut taxes to grow the economy because we're living in the red. We need to cut spending because we exist beyond our means. We need to have border control. We need to get illegal immigration down to zero and legal net migration to sensible levels. We need conservatism. I don't care, Trevor, who gives it to us. But notwithstanding your remarks about Shabbana Mahmood, I'm really worried about the governing party, because here's the front page of the Sunday Telegraph, and the headline is, Jana, get this up for me if you can, Ministers beg Rachel Reeves to unleash spending. Chancellor faces revolt over austerity-like fiscal rules as Labour conference begins. Now, this is troubling, isn't it, Trevor? This is a party in denial, and it's a party that appears to be increasingly ungovernable. Keir Starmer wants to cut disability benefits. They won't let him. He wants to stop the boats. They won't let him. And it's really a big headache for whoever leads the party that those behind the Prime Minister of the day are unable to actually exact their will.
Well, this has been the case, Mark, since they were elected. They are an unholy coalition of fragments of various whinging groups of politics. You've got a small Blairite section, which has until now been pulling the strings. The sacking of Peter Mandelson has rather blown a hole through that, and I think probably undermined the Prime Minister quite dangerously, simply because of his judgment, which was woefully lacking in that appointment in the first place. Now, so the Blairite faction is under suspicion, considerable suspicion. You've got the remaining traces of the Corbynites who haven't left to join his party or your party or whatever it's going to be called. And you've got lots of people in between from various factions, not least, as I suggested, those who are from certain cultures and certain faiths. So there are a lot of people to please and not enough of the means to please to go round. So when it comes to the budget, it's going to be a very, very difficult, if not impossible, chance for our tearful Chancellor Rachel Reeves.
Indeed, it's curious, isn't it, and fascinating, given your many years covering British politics, decades and decades, Trevor, that we've got a Prime Minister with an enormous majority governing as though he has a tiny one.
Well, you know, Mark, that the only reason he's got a huge majority is because of the mess that the Tories made of their 14 years. He didn't deserve it. He didn't earn it. Nobody knew who they were voting for, really. They were just absolutely fed up and determined. Even diehard, lifelong Labour Tory voters were determined and told me so that they would never vote Tory again. That's how he got his majority, not because he'd earned it or deserved it or had any plans or policies which they could actually latch onto and say, this is what we want. I mean, the worst thing about Starmer is that he's a totally empty vessel. The only thing that he does is to tell lies. And I mean, he's a congenital liar who will be dishonest even when confronted with the bald facts. And I think this is more than anything else the reason why he has gone down in the opinion polls with such a thudding crash, because not only is the general public fed up with him, not only have his own former voters deserted to reform, but his own MPs aren't even bothering to turn up to this week's party conference. I mean, it's the second conference only in 2 years of this party, which has the huge majority, and yet they're all in despair.
You're rightly critical of his character. I consider him to be a very devious and duplicitous character, and he's certainly politically very dishonest, having presented himself as a Corbynite lefty to win the leadership of the party, only for moments later to enter the centre ground and characterise himself as Tony Blair 2.0. Of course, he's none of those things. He's a moving target, isn't he, of a politician. But the issue is, going forward, I mean, is there anything that he can do this week or in the months ahead that might save his bacon? We can agree one thing, Trevor, which is that, yes, he's dishonest, yes, he's devious, he's ambitious, he's quite ruthless, and he wants to cling on to power. Would he think the unthinkable, such as to tear up the ECHR or look at the Human Rights Act in order to stop the boats? Is there a rabbit in the hat that he might pull out?
There are plenty of rabbits in the hat. It's a question of whether Keir Starmer has the capacity either to catch them, identify them, or actually pull them out of the hat. And the ECHR, I think, is inevitably going to be either amended or suspended or ditched by one party or another. And I wouldn't be surprised if Shabbana Mahmood is one of those who starts to talk about tinkering with it so that it brings it up to date, so to speak. I mean, it hasn't been changed effectively, although it's been transformed by those who are making use of it since it was introduced after the Second World War. And it's being abused by those people, and everyone knows this. Keir Starmer is an international lawyer. He supports everything international, nothing national, despite his claim to suddenly be a patriot. And I think that the big problem is that I think he's clueless, as well as the rest of his faults. He hasn't any ideas of his own which are politically adroit. He has to be fed ideas by other people, like Morgan McSweeney, his chief of staff in Downing Street, who himself is under huge pressure to disappear, not just from people on the opposition benches, but also from within his own party. This is the problem with Starmer. He presides over a party which cannot get together around any single issue. And the budget will be the point at which we will see this in stark terms.
Most definitely, Trevor. It's interesting, isn't it, what you've said about Shabbana Mahmood. Watch this space, folks. You heard it here first. Trevor Kavanagh, one of the most respected journalists in the country, suggesting that the new Home Secretary, who is on the right of the party, determined to stop the boats and bring down legal net migration, could be the dark horse candidate to replace Keir Starmer as Prime Minister at number 10. Now, clearly Starmer, Trevor, has identified Nigel Farage as his main opposition. That's clearly a wise calculation. Do you think that he's going to adapt his approach given the threat of Farage and Reform UK? Will he try to out-Farage Nigel Farage?
Well, the only thing that he can do to deal with Nigel Farage is to clearly demonstrate his decision and determination to curb mass illegal immigration. And he simply isn't going to do that. I mean, he will talk and strut and make all sorts of suggestions and promises, but nothing is going to happen in the next 2, 3 or 4 years before the next general election, which will materially affect the number of people who are coming into this country. Except, as I keep saying, that Shabbana Mahmood has the ability to do things, and Starmer doesn't, because it's so against every principle, if he's got any at all, it's to defend international law.
And Trevor, before I let you go, is it now the duty of Conservatives, whether it's Conservative voters or indeed leading figures within the Conservative Party, to unite the right and back Reform UK?
I don't think that the time is right, but I would be very surprised if, as we get closer to a general election, whenever that happens to be, it might come much sooner than 4 years from now, I think that they will have to take this very seriously.
Daniel, I wanted to ask you that. Sorry, let finish your point, Trevor.
Well, I think that they're going to have to consider, because for the sake of the nation, if the main point, I think, that the world, the British country this country has come to the conclusion about, is that this country should not be governed by this Labour Party. We need to get rid of this awful government, which is the despair not just of people like me and you and many of your viewers and listeners. It is the despair of the Labour Party. I mean, I speak to quite a lot of people in the Labour Party who I've got to know over the years, and they say to me, Trevor, what is happening with our government? What's happening in Downing Street? I mean, when it gets to that stage, Mark, you really know that the rot has set in. And I think that the people of this country are not going to forget what's been happening over the last 14 months of Labour mismanagement. They are not going to suddenly say, oh, well, they're not doing so badly after all. They're helping children with breakfast clubs and so on. They're going to say, we want to get rid of these people. And if there's a possibility that reform falls slightly short of an overall majority, then I think it would be incumbent on the Tory party to find a way of a coalition at the very least. And I think that it would be a betrayal of this country if Labour was allowed to stay in office.
And finally, Trevor, given the parliamentary arithmetic, why are people like Nigel Farage predicting an early election? After all, if Labour MPs know that they'll lose the next time we go to the country, turkeys don't vote for Christmas. So why doesn't it go all the way to 2029?
Well, it wouldn't be because the Labour Party wants a general election, that's for sure. But I think that a lot depends on November the 26th, Budget Day, Rachel Reeves' attempt to square a circle, which she cannot. Half her party wants her to spend more money, which she doesn't have. And a few within her party, urged on by Mark Carney, remember, who was a darling of the Labour Party in the Blair years, urging her to cut taxes on the middle classes, which would be anathema to the Labour Party. So she's going to upset a very large chunk of her party on either side of that debate.
Trevor, it's always a privilege to have you on the show. I've missed broadcasting with you. My thanks to the true legend of political journalism, Fleet Street icon, and of course the former political editor of the Sun newspaper, Trevor Kavanagh. Everything that Trevor says, you've got to listen to. This is a veteran of political journalism, and he's made so many accurate predictions over the years. And it's very interesting that he's mentioned Shabbana Mahmood as the potential dark horse candidate as leader of the Labour Party to replace Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. She's on the right of the party. If she manages to do something about illegal and legal net migration, then perhaps she might get a favourable response from the public. I know that they've got an uphill struggle, Labour, to win back public support, but could Shabbana Mahmood be the person to do it? Well, I'm delighted to say that The Sun on Sunday's political editor has an exclusive interview with her, and we'll get the inside story from Kate Ferguson before the end of the hour. But next up, is it the duty now of all Conservatives in the national interest to back Nigel Farage and to back Reform UK? I'll be asking Tory grandee Sir Michael Fabricant next.
No, we don't support making this mandatory. I think Darren Jones's video was completely tone deaf. We've seen 1.6 million people sign a petition in the hours after the Prime Minister made this pretty desperate announcement. He said it's about tackling illegal migration, but employers already have to check someone's identity. We don't support making it mandatory to do this in the digital format. You want to build trust and confidence in these services and get people to adopt them and choose to adopt them if they want to. If they prefer to use traditional methods, then they should be able to do that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, our interview with Tommy Cannon, comedy legend, yesterday has gone viral online. If you want to watch the clip, head over to YouTube, search Talk or talkTV, and you will find my interview with Tommy Cannon. Incredible stuff. A caller that was moved to tears because of the importance of Cannon and Ball when he was a little boy growing up in care. Joanna in Salisbury loves the old-fashioned comedies, and particularly Cannon and Ball and In Sickness and in Health. Of course, Alf Garnett, what a great character. Thank you for that, Joanna. How about this? Because, of course, Cannon and Ball completely cancelled by ITV. 21 million viewers at the height of their fame, but ignored during ITV's 70th anniversary celebrations. Gaz in Leeds says, "Morning, Mark, I don't watch woke ITV. They never screen blockbuster movies anymore. Disgusting that they've ignored Cannon and Ball. Typical childish behaviour from a woke channel." And a big reaction to today's Dolan's dispatch, in which I dealt with Sir Keir Starmer in no uncertain terms. A great dispatch, spot on with every word. And that is Mo in Lincolnshire. On ID cards, Dave in Manchester. Mark, if I refuse an ID card and cannot work, what happens to millions like me who could be banned from working? Dave, it's a very good point. I think this policy is DOA, which is dead on arrival. Unfortunately, a bit like the Prime Minister himself. How on earth, says Joel, does Labour think digital ID is a good idea in a sinking economy? How are they going to pay for it? Surely common sense is out of the door. Well, I think you've put it very well there. That's exactly the problem. This will be Labour's last ever conference when they're in power. They will never rule again, says Dale in Swindon. Listen, lots more of your messages to get through, and calls as well, 0344 499 1000. But here's a question for you. Is it now, given the problems facing the country, is it the duty of all Conservatives, voters and senior figures within the Conservative Party, is it the duty of all Tories to back Reform UK? I'll be taking a call on that in a moment, but first let's get the views of Tory grandee, no less, and now top-level political commentator, Sir Michael Fabricant. Sir Michael, welcome to Talk. So, Michael, I know that you're a very loyal person and you've devoted your entire adult political career to the Conservative Party, but is it time now for folk like you and people out there watching and listening who have voted Conservative in the past and who are unsure about Nigel Farage, in the name of unity, to back Reform UK?
Well, it's rather like the Second World War, when the Conservative government under Winston Churchill actually went into a national government with the Labour Party, with the opposite party. I certainly believe that the right should unite in one way or another. Otherwise, we'll just get what we've got already. Less than 21% of the electorate who were entitled to vote actually voted Labour, but they got in with a massive majority because the right was split. And the same thing happened to my lovely Lichfield, where I'm speaking to you from now. Whether now is the time to unite, I don't know. And whether it's right for the Conservatives to back the Reform Party on every issue, doubts, actually, because at the moment, although reform I agree with totally with regard to sovereignty, our borders, and all the rest of it, they've got other policies which are really good, in my opinion, including nationalising some industries which are sort of hard left, Starmer-esque type policies. So I would have difficulty at the moment in backing them. If I saw their manifesto, and of course we're a little while off before they produce that, and indeed before the Conservatives or Labour produce that, then I think it's time you might want to consider that.
Michael, stay with us. We're going to try to fix the sound because we need to hear your words of wisdom, and there's a bit of an issue with the audio. But Daniel is in Epsom, who's called the show. Daniel, is it the duty of all Conservatives, right, small c and big C Conservatives, to back Reform UK?
I think it is, Mark, and I think we are where we are. We've ended up with a socialist, ideological government that the British majority, basically this Labour government are at odds with the views and wishes of the British majority, and I think that's really apparent now. And I think all the people that voted Labour, they're culpable and they know what they've done. But I think that the right do have to align now. It's high time. I would say that the Lib Dems in blue ties, half of the Conservative Party, they can just disappear. They shouldn't have been in the Conservative Party in the first place. They're the actual problem, and they're the reason why the Conservative Party never did the things they should have done. But the other half, so the centrists and the con-socialists, they can go, they can disappear. But the other half that are actually of the right, it's high time. People like Rob Jenrick, they should say, look, we had our chance and we blew it, but the country, we have to get away from this awful government. And I think it's high time that the half of the Conservative Party that were actually conservative and of the right should lend their votes or join Reform, because we have to put the interests of the public first. We have to put the views and wishes of the majority of Britons first. It's for me, it's just a really simple equation.
Stay with us, Daniel, because we've got the line back to Sir Michael. Daniel has pointed out there that this is a national emergency. It's a crisis we're in, Sir Michael, which is why the right must unite, and that Reform UK are now the predominant leading party of the right. It's in the national interest, Sir Michael.
Well, as I said earlier, I'm not sure whether you caught all of it. The national interest did mean that the Conservatives merged with Labour to form a national government in the Second World War. We're not quite at that stage yet. And also, bear in mind, we may not have a general election for 3.5 years. So I think it's a little bit too early to commit yet. But I certainly do believe that the right should unite one way or another.
Daniel.
Yeah, I just want to say, Mr. Fabricant, listen, we are in peril. I don't know if you remember, but in 1997, this country was in the black, zero public debt. We now owe something like £2.6 trillion or something ridiculous, right? We've had mass uncontrolled immigration, we've had loads of immigration of all different kinds for the past 25, 30 years. We told governments like yours that we didn't want it and it's ruining the country, and you ignored us. We've now got probably 73 million people trying to use an infrastructure fit for 50 million people. I would say that it's time to come together, Michael. Oh, you've had your chance, Michael. We gave you the opportunity to get it right. You had 14 years to listen to us, and you chose to ignore us. Now's the time to put the British public first in our own country and do the right thing. All this delaying and naysaying has got to go, Michael. We need action.
Yeah, well, I have great sympathy with what you say. I mean, the Conservative Party became divided between one half, people like me who very much believed in what you say, and the other half, which was the one called One Nation, which were more or less Lib Dems.
Yeah,
and
so
we
it's
completely
incumbent on
lost.
You, Michael. It's incumbent on you, though, now. This is what I'm saying. It's okay, let's say you were on the right side of history, okay? And you wanted to listen to us and you didn't want to ignore us. Well, now it's high time to start listening and start acting. We don't want to talk anymore, Michael. We want you and Rob Jenrick all to join Reform, and let's get this show on the road, because we've had enough, Michael. We've had enough now.
I was with Rob Jenrick, actually, last night, because he came to Lichfield, so he gave a brilliant speech, which I know you would have approved of. But the thing is, as I was saying earlier, and you might not have caught it because there was something wrong with the sound on my system, there are one or two things at the moment that Nigel, who is a great buddy of mine, I will admit, is talking about, including nationalisation of utilities and one or two other things. Now, that may be not yet because he hasn't produced a manifesto, and that's fair enough. We're not actually at the stage of a general election yet, so parties don't produce their manifesto. But I couldn't back nationalisation. I think they need to get some of their policies sorted out, because a lot of them, well, not a lot of them, but about a third of them, I wholeheartedly disagree with, because they're actually far left policies. And I'm amazed, actually, that Nigel backs that.
I don't think they are, though, Michael. We haven't built a reservoir in about 40 years. You know, every time we get 2 weeks' worth of sunny weather, we've got a hosepipe ban. You know, maybe it is time that we took part of the water industry and nationalised it to stop all these problems. These are things, again, Michael, that your side of the party could have done. You could have listened to us.
I agree with you, Daniel. Michael, you are a true conservative. You're a red-blooded conservative, and you well, there you go, exactly right. You will have watched on in horror on those back benches as Theresa May signed up to the net zero target. You'll have watched on in horror at Boris Johnson's open borders experiment and the illegal crossings. You'll have watched on in horror at the illiberal and very unconservative lockdowns, right? None of these things align with your values and your principles. As a true conservative, you've got to back reform, because they are the real conservatives.
Yeah, but as I say, they've got some policies which are very not conservative. Now, I mean, I suspect that Nigel won't actually back them when it comes down to it. And I don't believe, incidentally, that nationalisation is the answer. I mean, you talk about the reservoirs. I mean, one of the worst water companies in the country for pollution is Dŵr Cymru, Welsh Water, which is nationalised. So they haven't, they're actually one of the worst in the country. So quite frankly, you know, that isn't the answer. But yes, I agree with the general principle. Most of what reform talks about, I wholeheartedly agree with, because at the end of the day, you know, Nigel Farage is a conservative. But I would have to see their manifesto before I actually commit. And we're not at a general election. Whether we like it or not, we are stuck with this rotten, unpopular Labour government for the next 3 years, 3.5 years or so. And the Conservatives have to get a move on, because we've had a policy total vacuum for the last 8-9 months, and it's not good enough.
Well, I agree. Thank you, Sir Michael. We'll come back to you in a moment. Daniel and Epsom, last word. Are the Tories toast? I mean, are they literally yesterday's party now? Can we cut them out of the equation altogether?
Yeah, I mean, I ran for the Conservative Party for years. I mean, I used to volunteer and help them out. I think where they went wrong is they sort of they stopped listening to what I would call the British majority. And we gave them quite clear and explicit instructions on illegal immigration, on legal immigration, and lots of law and order, I think common decency. And under their watch, and the Uni Party in general, it's dead. It's over. And people like Michael don't realise it yet, but it's over. They're gone. We've seen a succession of awful governments, red and blue, and people like me, I'm 48, I've seen both sides of the coin. And the British majority, Michael, in 3 years or 2 years, we're going to vote reform, okay? The British majority are going to vote reform. It's high time that you accepted it and did something positive about it.
OK, well, listen, Daniel, thank you for an impassioned call. Sir Michael, you're a great sport for taking that feedback, but I know you love the opinions of the public, especially from folk on your side who, you know, part company with you on some issues. We're going to return to that conversation shortly. And after the break, a big question that's been part of today's show. We clearly want to stop the boats, right? Unilaterally stop the boats. The crossings should be zero. I think we can make that the baseline. But what is a correct number of legal net migration? I've got your texts and calls on that. We'll debate that with Sir Michael Fabricant next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So what is the correct number for legal net migration? If we're going to stop the boats to zero, which most people with any half of a brain would agree is the right policy, what about legal net? What's the right number, given that in the year ending 2024 we had 750,000? Legal migration numbers, says Sean, should be minus £500,000 a year for the next 5 years. So Sean wants an emptying out of the population. Jane says, Mark, legal immigration for the next 10 years, zero. Steve in Cambridge, zero immigration for the next decade to get our economy in order, our country in order, and to improve things. A fantastic show. Thank you, Steve. Immigration should only be in the tens of thousands per year, says Mark in Norfolk. But more importantly, all immigration should be a net financial gain to the UK, which means doctors, scientists, engineers. We must not allow immigration which draws more finances from the state. Only then will our economy benefit. Thank you, Mark. Good morning, Mark. Great show, says Jane in Milton Keynes. Regarding immigration, the borders must be closed now and for at least 5 years until the country is safe and secure and everything put back in order. Kick Starmer, Labour and Khan out now. Scott in Surrey, the problem now is that legal migration is so openly abused that it's impossible to know what the legal limit should be. I personally think we should now stop all migration until we can fully understand what and who we really need to take this country forward. There's just so many messages coming in. I'll get to more messages shortly. How about Joan in Sunderland? Joan, what's a good figure for legal net migration into the country?
Zero.
And why'd you say that, Joan?
We've got far too many people here. There should be no migration whatsoever, no amnesty. These people chucked out of the country, they have no reason, no right to be here at all. And I'm fed up of Starmer. And I know people will say, well, he has the mandate because of the majority he got. That man is just operating as if this country belonged to him. Chagos Islands, nothing discussed. Recognising Palestine, nothing discussed. Reparation, no doubt, nothing discussed. It's just a disgrace. We elected them. It's not the other way around. And we've got to wake up and realise that this man and his crew have no intention whatsoever to do anything about migration. We are literally standing by and watching this government give our country away, our children and our grandchildren's inheritance. We've fought to keep this land. It's been given away. Look at what happens with houses, hotels, doctors, dentists, taxis. We are at the back of the queue. This has to stop. This man has to go, and so has his government, because they need to look in the mirror and see what they are. Hypocrites and a brood of vipers.
Very briefly, Joan, I absolutely agree with you about illegal immigration and also mass legal immigration. It's a huge problem. Just briefly, if you can, what about those sectors that need cheap foreign labour? Who's going to work in the care homes, in the NHS, hospital porters, fruit pickers, you name it?
Well, that's a problem. I mean, that's how it started, because these firms won't pay decent wages to people that are already here. So that's why the people here don't fill those jobs. And then they import all these people to do jobs because the wages have been so low. And that started it.
I think that's a very fair point. Joan, I'll come back to you. Sir Michael Fabricant, a very clear message from my viewers and listeners, including Joan in Sunderland, who wants immigration at zero. Some want zero immigration for a decade. What say you?
I say I agree with Joan totally. It's not just the immigrants coming here, it's also the fact that many of them don't want to integrate. You know, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, and a lot of them are not doing that. And you've now got Islamic political parties, in effect, being formed in some of our inner cities. We've never had this on mainland Great Britain. I mean, it was terrible when we had the problems in Northern Ireland. And I can see greater problems occurring in the UK. But to answer your question directly, Mark, because I know you'll press me if I don't want to see zero net immigration. I want to see minus immigration. In other words, I want to see net emigration. I would like to see the actual population of the UK reducing. Yes, bring in those people who will actually help us with seasonal permits to do the fruit picking and all the rest of it that you talked about. But I want to see the people who came here illegally and some of the people who came here legally and brought in their families with them not being allowed to stay in the United Kingdom because they're not actually benefiting us.
I'm pretty sure that Sir Michael Fabricant will have joined Reform UK before the end of the show. He's edging closer and closer. Joan, briefly, if you can, you get the last word on this.
About what?
Well, about immigration. So this is what Michael would like to see, which is actually people leaving the country who aren't contributing.
Well, I agree. I mean, you can ask anybody in this country. The majority of people will tell you their cities, their towns have completely changed from what it was years ago. And it just can't be maintained. And I know someone who's been on the council list for 10 years, and they're still on. And people who have just come to this country are being given houses. Now, I don't think that's fair. We should come first. We've given our blood. We've died to keep this country. We've strived. Why should people just be allowed to walk in and be given every darn thing? It's
well
wrong.
done, Joan. I agree totally. I had to say that. You are putting it so well.
You are, Joan. I really appreciated your call. Please call me again soon and have a lovely Sunday with your family. Thank you, Joan. Let's, Michael, now have a look at this digital ID, which is looking to be a bit of a car crash in slow motion. And Ruby in London, I understand that a digital ID is going to be a big headache for you. Tell me more.
Well, no. In fact, no. I came in 71. I am now 75. I've worked most of my life in the UK. And I asked when, after 5 years, I was free to do whichever job I chose to do.
Yeah.
The stamps on my passports that started being clear and legible became smaller and smaller, blurry and blurry, which caused me trouble when I was traveling on holiday, coming back. You know, airports in, say, Morocco and Egypt, they couldn't understand this little stamp, what it meant. So I thought I better apply for residence permit, which is the biometric card, which I had to pay for after being here for many years for free. So to speak, he was giving me the unlimited residence for free, but I had to pay for it to, you know, create myself less trouble. And so I got my biometric residence permit, which basically has very basic information, my name, my address, and although the Home Office has my fingerprints, because when I come, say, from holiday, arrive at Gatwick, arrive at Heathrow, I have to show my card, my passport, and then my fingerprint is taken. Now, those biometric cards were valid until 24 because of Brexit. And then I had to put it on my telephone now. So I have my biometric limited residence permit on my phone, but they say keep your card just in case, as you know, phones get hacked or the system gets hacked, whatever. Yeah. I can still show my card. Now, the card originally was created if you wanted to work in this country. But as I said, you know, I had worked for many years in this country, never had any issues. And so, to me, it was just a matter of convenience.
It's incredible. I mean, Ruby, sorry, because the clock is against us, but I mean, it's madness that you've had all of this bureaucracy, all of this cost and inconvenience in order to, you know, give something back to this country. Briefly, Ruby, you are an immigrant into the UK, but you've been here for years and years and years. You've worked hard. You pay your taxes. What do you think about the current numbers coming into the country?
Atrocious. Because when I first came in the 70s, I remember many companies, you know, had this issue of employing foreigners. And the idea was that only if they could not find a British applicant to fill the job, they could then employ a foreigner, say. But now, you know, I mean, of course, the black market will always exist, unfortunately. You know, I mean, if you go to have your nails done, you may even pay cash because it's better for the, you know, person that's doing your nails or whatever, little jobs like that. It always exists. As I say, you know, I have worked all of my life. And I'll tell you something else that it may surprise you. Although I am now retired, I worked until the 2019, so I was 69 almost. And I decided to defer my pension. I thought that will be my little pot for my old age. Last, on one of my employment, very small pot that I get about 198 a month, I pay 50% tax.
Well, I tell you, the world's gone mad. Ruby, I've got to let you go. Just tell me, what did you do for a living all those years?
I worked, when I first came from worker, then I worked for incoming tour operator until almost 55. Then I worked the last 14 years I worked for a home, what do you call it? You know, that they rent homes for people.
Oh, rental agency and stuff like that. Well, let me say, Ruby, can I salute you? Because you see, what you've done is you've come to this country, right? And you have a beautiful command of the language, and you've been here for decades. You're a British woman, and you've contributed massively, and you've paid your taxes, and you've worked hard. And that, Michael, is what good immigration looks like. It's not what we have now. And Ruby, who is an immigrant to this country, has described the current numbers as, I quote, atrocious. So, well, Michael,
she's absolutely right, because whereas Ruby integrated herself into the country, accepted the mores, I think that's the word, of the United Kingdom, and is proud to be British, one of the problems is that a lot of people coming here don't want to be British. They want to be separate. They don't want to integrate. And I talk as someone with a French surname, with parents with a Jewish background who always took the view, although, I mean, my parents, grandparents and great-grandparents have lived in Britain for, you know, hundreds of years, but nevertheless, they took the view, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, otherwise don't come here. And that's what it's all about, actually, being part of our greater English, Scottish, Welsh, Northern Irish society and not being separate, and certainly not setting up Gaza parties and goodness knows what else.
So Michael, former Tory grandee, but now one of the most compelling political commentators in the country, and I do hope you'll return to the show and to the channel in the near future. My thanks to Sir Michael Fabricant, who I think you'll agree made a very fascinating contribution to our conversation. Next up, Shabbana Mahmood, Home Secretary, has a plan to stop the boats. More on that next.
asylum seekers are being ferried around the country in taxis to the tune of hundreds of thousands of pounds. There's one taxi company which was making £344,000 a month.
You're
right?
kidding.
I am not joking. £344,000 a month. They go for dentist appointments. They're going to visit the Home Office. In some cases, they're going to the mosque. And they're going in taxis because the Home Office says basically these people need to be treated differently from ordinary British citizens because they are vulnerable and they can't get the bus, even though they get a free bus pass.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, the Fleet Street legend, the one and only Trevor Kavanagh, told us in this show that a dark horse candidate to replace Sir Keir Starmer in the event of a leadership contest could be the new Home Secretary, Shabbana Mahmood. Well, as luck would have it, The Sun on Sunday have an exclusive interview with our new Home Secretary, who thinks she can stop the boats and bring down legal net migration. And the person that's got the story is the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, a good friend of the show, Kate Ferguson. Hi, Kate. What did Shabbana Mahmood have to say?
Hi, good to be here, kicking off Labour Conference Week. Yes, we did this big sit-down with Shabbana Mahmood. She's this new Home Secretary. Keir Starmer got Yvette Cooper out the way to bring Shabbana into this role. And she's pretty tough talking for a Labour Home Secretary. She talks about how it's her mission to restore order to the borders, how failure is not an option for her. She says Britain is a deeply divided place at the moment, and if she and this Labour government don't succeed in bringing migration down and stopping those boats, then it will become more angry, more divided. Now, she's got a few policies she's looking at, which I think will be interesting to your listeners. She's got these reviews into the Modern Slavery Act, the ECHR. These are those laws that are constantly being used by migrants to thwart their deportations. And she's also threatening to take visas away from countries who don't take back their overstayers or their foreign criminals. There's lots of countries that just refuse to let the planes land there and take these people back. And the new policy she was talking about yesterday was about changing the rules around letting people live and settle in Britain permanently. This rule of indefinite leave to remain. Currently, you're basically allowed to do that if you have a job, show you of financial means, you can afford to live here. And she talks about rewriting that rule book so that they actually have to show that they contribute to British society too. So she's looking at things like volunteering, involvement in local schools. But this idea that I think is interesting is that you need to be integrated, part of a community, show your contribute to British life rather than a kind of economic transaction for settlement.
Does she sound like a future leader and a future Labour Prime Minister?
I do think she's a hugely impressive politician. She's got quite a lot of fans. I mean, you talked about the great Trevor Kavanagh there. Michael Gove, also a big fan. The really interesting thing about Shabbana, when you sit down and talk to her, is she has a kind of coherent worldview. She's very kind of driven by her moral and religious outlook. Her parents were obviously a big force in her life. And when she talks about the policy change she wants to implement, they don't feel like just individual ideas hacked together. It feels like this is a woman who's thought deeply about politics and knows what she wants to achieve, and that kind of whatever role you put her in cabinet, it would be coherent, it would make sense.
I think it's a great scoop that you've managed to get this interview with Shabbana Mahmood. Failure on the boats is not an option. Here is the story. So grab your Sun on Sunday to get more on that. What about hopes on her part of stopping the boats? I mean, how politically significant would it be if she got numbers down?
Oh, hugely. I mean, look, it's so difficult. We've had tough talking Home Secretaries before, haven't we? I mean, you're thinking of Suella Braverman, you think of Priti Patel. It's not like we've not had tough women in these roles before. We have. The point is, it's incredibly hard to stop the boats for a myriad of reasons. The first being that these people smugglers and these migrants have worked out that if you get on a dinghy in pretty calm waters, you can get here. The other being, it's quite easy to stay here once you make those claims. So I think that in order to get those numbers down, she's going to have to throw the kitchen sink at it, right? She's going to have to look at rewriting these conventions, these laws, as well as getting these deportation deals done. The danger is that trust is just so low. We've been here before. We've heard it a million times. Every Prime Minister, every party leader, every Home Secretary talks about stopping the boats. Until the numbers come down, I think people aren't really listening yet.
Kate, it's a great exclusive. You'll find it in today's